Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Tuesday. Normally we do coffee and cursey words. Today we're doing Lawyer Reacts Live. If you are new here, welcome. Don't forget to do the YouTube things. Today we are gearing up and rolling into day 13 in week 4 of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. There was a lot of testimony yesterday. I took a lot of notes. Today, we are going to be kicking off with the second part of a video deposition from the nurse that worked closely with Amber Heard. We've already heard from the nurse and the doctor that worked closely with Johnny Depp. I'm a little bit surprised this is the last witness, or seems to be the last witness from Depp's side. We are seeing reports from Court TV and others that the first witness for Amber Heard's side today will be a nurse or a forensic psychologist from via video deposition, which I don't think will be as impactful, but we'll see. The video depositions tend to be harder to connect to. It might not be as impactful as Johnny Depp's forensic psychologist, Dr. Curry, but we will see. So we are going to get rolling. Court will start in just a few minutes. So I'm going to roll the intro. Law nerds, tell me where you're coming in from. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a law nerd. Thank you for being the best community on the internet to cover a case that is just really, at the end of the day, pretty sad. And then we're going to go to court and see that Amber Heard's wearing a suit that looks a little bit like Johnny Depp's suit from yesterday. All of you that came in from Phil DeFranco, thank you. He's been so supportive. We got to work together covering the Britney Spears case and has been a huge supporter of the channel. So thank you for being here. I think we hit 245 at some point. It's amazing. The fact that y'all want to know about law is incredible. And I know I will get questions about what's going on with the Supremes. I have not had a chance to read this leaked opinion. I just want to warn and state that it is not a final opinion. It may become a final opinion, but they also, while they are doing draft opinions, do still change their opinions and their votes. So I'm going to read it. We will cover it when we have time. But right now, my focus is 100% on this trial. So let's roll the intro and then let's get right into court today. Hey there. If we haven't met yet, I'm Emily D. Baker, the badass lawyer and everyone's favorite legal commentator. I'm the host of The Emily Show, and I break down the legal shit behind the news and pop culture stories we all want to talk about. I have been a licensed attorney for over 15 years, but this is not legal advice. I should warn you, I'm a big fan of the cursey words. This channel is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not fuckery. So yes, I do use the cursey words for all of you that are new here. Sometimes when talking about court, you need to use the cursey words. Also, I do sometimes talk over the foundational questions. If you would like to watch without legal commentary from a lawyer that's been a lawyer almost 17 years now, you're welcome to do that. It's being streamed on like Court TV. I'm streaming it from Sky News. There are tons of places to watch it without commentary. So again, thank you all for being here. It's just absolutely incredible to see over 8,000 of you here this morning. So let's talk about testimony from yesterday just a little bit. I really enjoyed the morning testimony from ZZ Top. For all of you that watched all day yesterday, have you already forgotten the morning witnesses from yesterday? Right? Same. It happens. This is why I take notes. And this is why I do roundups. If you want just short bit roundups, I do like a 1-minute roundup on Instagram Reels, TikTok, and over on my Shorts channel, quick bits. But ZZ Top Beard was great. I thought he very much came across as a witness who didn't want to downplay, but wanted to make sure that everybody understood that Johnny and Amber fought a lot together, but the physical violence he saw was from Amber, and he seemed reluctant to say it. He seemed almost ashamed that while he was trying to get Johnny Depp out of the penthouse, Amber reached across him and punched Johnny Depp in the face, and Johnny Depp was he didn't say fucking pissed on the stand, but that's the vibe of the testimony, that Johnny Depp was absolutely livid and saying, it is your fault that I just got punched in the face after he had been hit with a Red Bull can. Lots of Red Bull happening in this trial. We've talked about Red Bull a lot. Not as much as we've talked about like this lawyer's cat. This lawyer, Needlehoft, sitting next to Rottenborn. This lawyer's cat came up yesterday in court. We'll talk about that in a minute. Things I expect today that I've seen a lot of people confused about on the internet, mostly because the media sensationalizes shit. So weird that the media headlines are like, "Bleh," and then we're all like, it's not that though. There will be a motion to dismiss. I expect that Johnny Depp's team will rest today. We are still in Johnny Depp's case in chief. They are still proving their case. Amber Heard has a countersuit, so she is going to have to prove her case next. But while they are doing their case in chief, they also have to defend against the other case as well, because they are going one at a time. So Johnny Depp's case is still going. He is still calling the witnesses that are most favorable to his case. After he is done, he will rest. And then Amber Heard's side, it looks like the judge is coming in. Amber Heard's side will then make a motion to dismiss. They will ask if there's any matters to cover and then bring in the jury.
All right. Are we ready for the jury today, or do we have any preliminary matters? Okay.
So they're going to do exhibits.
With the exhibits.
With that, there will be a motion to dismiss. Hey, you haven't proven the elements enough. It's not going to fly. They've proven the elements here. This is a matter of fact. The jury is the finder of fact. Did Amber Heard lie? There's enough for them to consider that that's a possibility. The poor court reporter is switching headphones. This is the headphones she wears for these mics when she's covering stuff that's happening at sidebar. And then she has another set of headphones she wears when she's covering stuff that's live happening in the court. Wild stuff. So with that, I mean, the court reporter is the real MVP, the amount of work that goes into doing what she does. So with that, you get his side resting, a motion to dismiss. They haven't met the elements. They have met the elements here. It's whether the jury agrees with them or not. So it's for the finder of fact. So that will probably be argued orally before the judge and then dismissed by the judge before Amber Heard's team calls her first witness. The judge could also reserve ruling on it and let them start their next witness. I doubt that will happen, but that's what's going to happen this morning. And then we'll get into Amber Heard's case.
Are we ready for the jury?
Okay. Amber Heard has to prove her counterclaim at the same time. They are deciding both of these trials at the same time. Did Amber Heard defame Johnny Depp by alleging that she was a victim of domestic abuse? Did Johnny Depp's lawyer, his agent, defame Amber Heard when he made statements that all of that was a hoax or a lie? And that's what's going to happen today. Will Amber Heard take the stand? Is she dressed to take the stand? Is this your I take the stand power suit? I don't know. But we do know there will be at least, or likely at least, one witness before Amber Heard takes the stand. So this morning, we're getting into medical testimony from the nurse who worked with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, their private nurse who worked with Dr. Kipper. Yesterday, after Travis McGivern, we got into the experts. You know, the guy who negotiates all the deals in Hollywood and gets to yes, that guy is absolutely incredible. He negotiated the merch deals for Star Wars and like every other movie that made our childhoods great. And he was fascinating. Are we ready to
continue with the witness on deposition?
Yes, Your Honor. The remaining portion of the deposition video of Erin Falati will include the questioning by counsel for Mr. Depp.
All right.
So this is Mr. Depp's team questioning the nurse that saw bleeding on Amber Heard's lip and encouraged her to go to the doctor after the incident where she alleged she was hit with the phone.
Do you have any professional responsibility to report or document?
So right back into testimony.
Physical abuse of one of your patients.
Unfortunately, deposition testimony.
I am, if I witness or find out information of domestic or child abuse, yes.
Domestic or child abuse, she must report.
I need to notify superiors of the information.
She is a mandated reporter.
When did you first meet Ms. Heard?
I believe it was the end of, excuse me, hang on one sec. I have it here.
Hello, all of our international law nerds. It's so good to see that.
I'm just looking at my nursing notes. It looks like August 27th, 2014.
Okay, so can we please pull up the nursing notes, which I believe are Exhibit 2?
So
okay,
they're hammering on the
while we have this document up,
mandatory reporter.
This section that's called client history.
I think she anticipates to testify today.
Yes.
If she's a mandatory reporter, what did she see?
Paragraph.
And why didn't she report it, or did she?
By Ms. Heard.
I just have a quick moment to review that, and then I can answer that question.
Certainly.
So this is Nurse Falati on the stand via video deposition. She was a private nurse for both Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, primarily worked with Amber Heard. These are nursing notes we saw yesterday. And this is Johnny Depp's team questioning her via deposition that was recorded on February 4th, 2022.
So to answer that question, I believe this was information given to me from Ms. Heard. I'm not positive, but I can say that anytime I refer or begin a sentence with client states or client reports, those I can confirm, you know, I received that information
client
from the
said so?
client. As far as in totality, I would assume most information came from Ms. Heard, but I can't rule out that I didn't get any information from the treating physician.
So Whitney, I have really good lights. I look much more tired in person.
And I think you, would this information have been relayed to you at that first meeting with Ms. Heard?
This information, if it was information I received from Dr. Kipper, I would have.
Yes,
had
I am
that
still a
information
actively licensed
probably
attorney.
prior to meeting her. But anytime that I said states and I can confirm that I got that information, I would assume that it was sometime within the first day or two of meeting her, because I usually take a client history when I meet a client.
Down a couple more sentences. It says, AH reports history of substance abuse, including an addiction to cocaine and liquor. CT client reports abstaining from cocaine for a couple years, but was unable to report exact dates. Do you see what do you see that where I'm referring to?
Yes, I see that.
And that's something that you would have written?
Yes.
Okay. And this is also information
Hello, Grace.
that you believe Ms. Heard would have reported directly to you?
Again, I don't have specific recollection of this, but I would have to refer to my notes that says the client reports it.
So again, these are Heard's
the assumption
reports
would be made
about
that she
Depp's
provided me with that
perceived
information.
addiction. And I say
So
perceived
it
because
says-
he said he was
it goes on
addicted to
say
painkillers,
she
not
does
cocaine.
smoke cigarettes. She reports consuming 1-3 glasses of red wine each day. Do you
That's
see that?
contradictory to Depp as
Yes.
other testimony.
And again, this is based off of your notes, something that Ms. Heard reported to you, correct?
Again, I don't recall the specifics of that. I would refer again that in that particular sentence you're referring to, I used the verbiage of she reports, meaning Ms. Heard reports. So I would make the assumption that she reported that information to me.
Welcome, Katie.
In the time that Ms. Heard was your patient, do you recall seeing her consume wine?
Yes.
Is this self-report of 1-3 glasses of red wine each day consistent with your recollection?
I don't recall her drinking
She might
red
take the
wine
stand today.
every time I saw her, so I can't confirm that each time I saw her she would drink 1-3 glasses. I don't recall her drinking every time I saw her.
Did you ever see Ms. Heard appear intoxicated from drinking
Wizard
alcohol?
security babe. He was sweet. I liked him.
I don't recall her being intoxicated.
Okay,
And
so
these
moving on
questions
the
I'll get
next
to at the break when I can
sentence, it
answer
says
them.
She reports a familial history of substance abuse. Both mother and father have abused and become dependent
you,
on
Dragon Tears.
stimulants,
Legally Curious
methamphetamine,
from Seattle.
opiates, and alcohol.
We've got coffee. We've got Kersey. We've got a
Did I
video
read that
deposition.
correctly?
We'll
Yes.
see if there's anything that comes out of this that's
The she here
helpful.
refers to Ms. Heard.
or interesting.
That's correct.
So this is also something that Ms. Heard reported to you as far as your notes reflect.
Again, I don't have specific recollection of this. It appears that she did report that, but I don't remember.
I see all you beautiful bastards from Phil DeFranco show. Thank you
so-
for coming over to check it out. I appreciate
A
that.
couple sentences later here, it says, client admits to a history of anxiety, eating disorder, attention deficit disorder, bipolar disorder, codependence issues, and occasional
And this is all
insomnia.
from
Can you
this
see that sentence?
Notes.
Yes.
And based off of this note and specifically the
Interesting.
language that says
She
client admits,
self-reported bipolar,
you believe that this is something that Ms. Heard would have reported to you?
and
As
that's
you stated,
notable.
because it says client
And we'll get to that in a minute.
admits, I would make that assumption.
I'm gonna make a note.
What do you recall Ms. Heard saying about her history of anxiety issues?
I don't recall specifics. As I stated earlier in the morning, I remember a general anxiety with many issues in her life.
What do you recall Ms. Heard telling you about her codependence issues?
I have vague memory of discussing codependence issues within previous relationships. I couldn't give you specifics on that. I just sort of have a vague memory of discussing that.
Do you have any non-specific recollections of Ms. Heard being angry or enraged?
Other than that time that I spoke about in London 2014, I didn't specifically witness anger and rage from Ms. Heard.
The next sentence here says her mood has been labile. Am I pronouncing that correct? So first of all, what does that mean?
Emotional ability is typically when emotions
That wasn't the
swing on a
question.
pendulum. You know,
She was asking what the word meant.
Someone
I also want to know what the word
very
means.
sad at one moment and quickly transition to extreme happiness. It sort of swings from, like I said, sort of a pendulum.
And did you ever in the time that you treated Ms. Heard, did you ever personally witness this type of emotional ability?
I don't recall specifically.
Okay. The next sentence says, client expressed concern to husband and Dr. Kipper that she's nervous about being alone while husband is working on movie set in London, and expressed she has difficulty dealing with feelings of insecurity and jealousy when not in the presence of her husband. Did I read that right?
Okay.
Do you recall learning this during your initial meeting with Ms. Heard?
I don't recall learning this during the
The cat was defamed.
initial
The dogs have been defamed
meeting,
too.
but
Justice for
again,
the animals.
when I initially met Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp, it was fairly brief because then after that we traveled to London. So I don't recall.
And then
if
we
I
heard about London from
learned
Ben
of this
King.
instantaneously, or if that was gathered, throughout the next day or two, spending time with her.
RN will serve as companion for client and
Is this
will monitor
description
currently
of
prescribed
Ms. Heard
medication.
having feelings of insecurity and jealousy when not in
Imagine.
the presence of Mr. Depp, is that consistent with your recollection when you were treating Ms. Heard?
I mean, for those of you in the
wouldn't
US,
say
to
all
get
the
to see a
time
nurse is one
that
thing.
was an issue. I have a vague sense of those issues popping up throughout
This
the
is
years,
how behind I am on the
but I
chats.
wouldn't say
Sorry,
that
y'all.
was a constant theme.
But you do have recollections of that being an issue at some time while you were treating her.
I would say that's a fair statement.
Please go to the entry for August 29th, 2014.
And these are the black bits
Okay, so
that are
in
marked
this one,
out
I'd like to
here are
direct your
redactions agreed to by the
attention to
attorneys.
section that starts with 2345. And specifically the first sentence, it says client
So,
RN
Krista, that's the
and
motion to
Debbie
dismiss I talked
RN
about.
went to dinner together. You see that?
I do.
Y'all, they went to dinner.
And Debbie RN is Debbie Lloyd, is that correct?
Oh, that's the other
correct.
nurse.
I'm going down a couple sentences here. It says, client verbalizes feelings of confusion as she feels fiance would like her to decrease / eliminate acting career and stay home.
Huh.
Do you see that?
I'd be frustrated by that.
Do you remember having this specific conversation with Ms. Heard?
Couch. I love this judge's promptness too.
I don't remember specifically, but I do have a general recollection.
Serena, that's exactly what I'm here for. I love breaking down
No,
how
I
this
don't
all works so
recall
everybody
specifics.
understands, or at least we try to understand. Some of this stuff we don't understand. Why is
Did
this
you
their
ever
style of
have
cross?
any,
I don't know.
discussions with Mr. Depp
Crazy.
concerning Ms. Heard's acting career?
Hello, Serenity, and your cousin.
I have a sort of vague general memory of discussing that before.
Tammy, I've been doing this for too many days, and I
As
read
to
that as Good Morning
specific
from
details,
Hearsay,
I
Pennsylvania.
don't think I can provide you with specifics, but
Apology.
it sounds familiar.
Hello, Hershey.
Did you ever have the impression that Mr. Depp wanted Ms. Heard to stop her or end her acting career?
I don't recall that being a sentiment.
Because he testified, how do you think she got Aquaman? If he wanted her to stop acting, I feel like he wouldn't be helping.
Let's, if we could scroll
But
down.
I think we'll get into that
to
later,
the
maybe.
Entry for
don't know if it
September
matters.
2nd, 2014.
And for nursing notes, again, it matters what Amber's perception is. It doesn't matter really what happened. She feels this way. And that's what
Now,
matters
I'd
for
like to
her
direct
nurse's
your
treatment.
attention to a sentence in the middle of this entry. It says, RN and CT discuss CT relationship. CT records difficulty with jealousy, issues, and anxiety around fiance's fame and ability to
The hair's
interact
cute
with
today, though. I'm
females
not going to lie.
often. Did I read that correctly?
Anxiety and jealousy.
And
Okay.
that's a note that you wrote, correct?
We already covered that.
Do you recall Ms. Heard expressing the sentiment to you?
Again, like we discussed earlier, I don't recall that specifically. I do have a general sense of jealousy, anxiety issues popping up throughout the years, but I don't remember that specific discussion to give you anything deeper than that.
I still want a muffin, Stephanie, but I do have a mega pint of coffee.
2014?
Yeah, the court reporter definitely deserves muffins.
Now, I'd like to direct your attention to, this is also in the middle. It says CT ate dinner with RN at 2100 at restaurant.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay. CT became frustrated with wait staff over miscommunication. CT calmly repeated herself to staff to resolve the issue. CT expressed frustration over conflict to RN. RN reflected change in coping mechanisms as CT's previous coping skills involved impulsive anger and yelling. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Do you recall this incident at all?
CT able to
wouldn't have
acknowledge
said
ability to
that I
process conflict and
remembered
express pride and healthy
this
conflict resolution.
In preparation for the deposition, when I was rereading through these notes, I have sort of a vague memory of this, but I think my notes here probably are more specific than what I exactly remember.
Yes, it gets very
Let's
into detail
actually go
about her
to
eating.
The entry for September 21st, 2014. And
Y'all, she was able to be nice to the wait staff and she was praised over this. That's what I'm taking away from that testimony.
yes, okay.
Okay.
Please take a moment and review this. And once you're done, the question is does this note reflect that incident in London that you just referred to?
To answer your question, yes, that is what I'm referring to.
Medication. Okay. This is foundational stuff. I don't know if they're going to circle it back to something
It
else.
says down here at the
We'll
bottom
see.
of the notes, client's fiance offered emotional support. Is that accurate to your recollection?
I don't recall. I would have to refer to
Thank
my
you,
nursing
hopelessly dope.
note, as it's probably a lot more reliable than my
I'll get to
current memory.
questions at the break. This is a great question.
I believe you testified earlier, though, that you recall that Mr. Depp was present on
Thanks,
this
Sandy.
occasion. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now we can move on to the entry for September 22nd.
Quaking, Emily. Umbridge's knees are quaking.
Okay.
No, she's a
So
seasoned
this
attorney.
note
She's probably ready
begins,
to get to her case.
Um,
I would be. I'd be ready.
This strike that. This starts with 0100. Is that 1 o'clock in the morning on September 22nd?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And it starts, RN notified that client who requires assistance. Upon arrival, client noted to appear irritable, loud, and angry.
KT
Client
screaming
at times and appears agitated.
crying and states she got in an argument.
Client crying and states she got into a verbal argument with fiance after RN departure. Does this refresh your recollection at all about?
I don't know why we're talking about 2014. If y'all are going to ask me, I have no idea why we're talking about 2014. We're talking about Miss Heard's mental state.
I don't know that it
I mean,
refreshes my memory. I would say it
Okay.
reflects my memory.
and again, she's an RN.
This
She should
is
stick to the
same
notes. If it's not in
outburst
the
in
note,
London that you have been previously referring
it's
to.
not in the notes. It didn't happen. This is what I remember.
that's
It's in the notes. But it feels like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard both hired a parent
Do you
to
recall anything about
take
what
care of them and
the
calm them and soothe them. And
fight between Mr.
give them
Depp and
meds
Ms. Heard was about that's reflected in this note?
so
I don't really recall. I remember a general sense of Ms. Heard being very upset that her phone was hacked because there was very sensitive
choose right. Yes.
information that was leaked from it.
Video depositions are super boring.
And I feel like she was having a difficult time calming after that. So
Which also is fair. If her phone was hacked and she had sensitive info on it,
there was
having a
any
hard time
verbal,
calming down doesn't
disagreements, I would
shock the
assume it's
conscious.
in relation to that, but I just don't remember the specifics of what that disagreement was about.
I'd be pissed too.
It says here.
This is a Depp witness.
Client states she feels fiance did not provide support to client. Did I read that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that consistent with your recollection?
I didn't recall that, but
Her
again, I would
answer
state
every time should
that
be, if it's in my
are
notes, my
much
notes are
more
thorough.
reliable than my current memory,
Yeah.
and I think that probably speaks to your previous question.
and that's going to be her answer every single time. What is in my notes is what happened. I have no independent recollection. Every
Entries which
single
from
time.
March 7th, 2015, which are on page.
That's how
with the
she
base
protects
number
herself too as a nurse.
16952.
So I think every answer is going
Now,
to be,
we looked
do
at
you
these
remember this?
entries
No,
earlier.
it's in my notes.
Do you recall that?
That's why you take notes.
Now, with respect to the entry for March 7th, 2015, it says client notifies RN via text of increasing anxiety, reports emotional lability.
Yeah, Mia moved. They moved right away from, are you a
Do you
mandatory
recall
reporter?
her
Did you report? I
reporting
hope
why
they
she
circle
was
back to it.
feeling
If they don't
anxious at
circle
the
back to it,
time?
I'm going to be annoyed. They're still going through
No, I don't
2015
recall
and when
the
Amber was
specific
mad.
reason of why she is notifying me of that at this time.
People are allowed to be mad. I don't know if any of this is helpful. It's all very dry.
So it says here that she notified you via text, right?
Right.
Directing your attention to the next note from March 8th,
Thank you, Spark of Heart.
2015. And I know you discussed this with Adam earlier, so I won't belabor this too much.
Thank you for not
but,
belaboring it.
Do you recall that at the time of this entry on March 8th, 2015, Ms. Heard was in Australia?
Everybody's in Australia.
I would make that assumption based upon my note for March 8th. I state that client will be returning to Los Angeles, accompanied by House Manager Ben. I'm paraphrasing there, but
I
yes,
want House Manager Ben
I
to escort me
believe she was
everywhere.
coming from
I adore
Australia
him.
for this particular entry.
It says here RN plans to meet client upon arrival. Do you see that?
Oh, yes, I do.
And I think you testified to this earlier.
It's just
you
bad
did
lighting in the
see
deposition
Ms. Heard the
room.
next day when
Like,
she
this is-
arrived back in Los Angeles. Is that correct?
Bad lighting plus Zoom. This will be interesting if there's any injury to Amber when she returns from Australia, because she had reported there
That's
was.
correct. If you look at the entry for March 9th, I refer
So this is
to meeting her
returning
and
home.
her friends. So yes, I would have met her in person that day.
Do you recall how long you spent with Ms. Heard that following day?
And it says in good spirits, laughing, socializing, appetite normal. So
I don't recall.
Depp
My
gets his figure
note
severed.
states that I met her for dinner at 2200, which military time would be 10 p.m.
Depp gets his finger severed. She flies
I
home
don't
and she's
recall how
fine.
long I was
Is what
with
I'm
her.
reading, except for anxiety the
So
day
I would
before.
assume a couple hours, but again, that I'm just making an
Moderate
assumption.
anxiety the day before.
Do you recall observing any injuries to Ms. Heard when you saw her on March 9th, 2015?
No, I don't recall. I don't make note of it, but I don't
I want to get to
recall
this.
either.
It says, client states she would like to
Ms. Heard
discuss recent
had
events between her and her
visible
husband with RN in
injuries, is
private
that
tomorrow.
something that you would have documented in your nursing notes?
I would assume so.
Do you recall Ms. Heard seeking any medical treatment from you when you saw her on March 9th?
This is the point.
2015?
I don't recall.
If she had sought medical treatment, would it be in your nursing notes,
Um,
perhaps?
If Ms. Heard had sought medical treatment from you on that date, is that something you would have documented in your notes?
This is what happens
Perhaps
when you
if there
try to
were
prove what didn't
requests
happen.
for medical treatment that differed from sort of day-to-day status, then yes, I might have put it in my notes if I hadn't discussed with Dr. Kipper, but I don't
She
make
said
any
might.
reference to it in this particular note.
Could we please pull
If your famous
up,
client had been injured, would
what
you have
should
noted it?
be,
That's the
in-
question.
I think I would have uploaded as document B. It bears the base numbers Falati 0134.
I don't know
Can
what
you
the
report
reporter requirements are in Australia, but it seems that they didn't report some of the injuries to Johnny either. So I think there's an argument for Heard's team here to say these people were mandatory reporters, but if they suspected
I think
Johnny
we
was a
covered
victim
this
of abuse,
before, but,
they didn't report
just to
that either.
confirm,
I think this goes both
is
ways.
this your email up at the top that says erinboren@hotmail.com?
Hopefully that's not still her email. I mean, it is a Hotmail, so hopefully it's not still her email.
I'm sorry, did you respond?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't hear that. Okay. I'd like to direct your attention down to this
Thank you.
email from David Kipper on March 9th, 2015. That starts out, Erin, love you too much.
Edna, everyone needs a vacation after this trial's over.
Do you recognize this email?
I want to see the email. Can we just see the email?
I believe I produced this in reference to the subpoena.
Sarah, I can't get more volume on these depots. It's from the court. This is the max we can get out of the
Do
court.
you
I
recall
cannot milk
receiving
any
this
more
email?
volume out. Sorry.
I don't recall, but I do remember reviewing this. I don't think I reviewed it in preparation for today, but probably at the time of the document request. I think I probably reviewed this.
I know the audio's muffled. Part of that is the
Directing your
deposition tape.
attention to the middle of the email. Do you see where it says, I'm sure JD will let her know we are coming home. I want her to please not see him for a few days until we can get him organized with the hand surgeon and get his meds balanced. You see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And JD refers to Mr. Depp in this instance,
Yes,
and the her is Ms. Heard.
yes.
Did you have an understanding at the time as to why Dr. Kipper didn't want Ms. Heard to see Mr. Depp for a few days?
Yeah, I want to know that too.
I don't recall exactly. This might have been in reference to Australia when they, meaning Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were separated. I would have to check the dates on that.
It's clearly relating to the Australia incident.
Turning back to your notes where Ms. Heard was returning from Australia on March 9, 2015, does that orient you?
Yes.
They're trying to orient her as to
Yeah,
time.
would
That
be
makes
the same
sense.
time period.
And you alluded to an understanding that Dr. Kipper wanted Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard separated.
Yes.
And what was your understanding as to why they should be separated?
I don't recall specifics. I wasn't present in Australia at that time. I just remember a general sense of a big argument happening and the treatment team deciding that they should not be around each other. So
If
Ms.
y'all are
Heard
getting bored
returned
watching
to
this already,
Los Angeles,
imagine how the
and
jury
Mr. Depp
feels.
stayed in Australia for how long, I don't recall.
Vancouver Vixen shared RN here when young nurses ask for help with their notes. I say pretend you're reading it in court in 2 years for exactly this reason. Don't add extra, stick to the facts.
Stay quiet
Exactly
without
right.
any distraction for the rest of the week while we get his medication organized and balanced. None of this will be accepted by her, but I will be very upset. You can tell her this. If there is any stress created by a visit, that's premature. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you have any understanding as to why Dr. Kipper was directing you to?
This should have all
provide
been
this
in Dr.
excuse
Kipper's
to Ms. Heard?
testimony, and a lot of it was.
Yeah, and just the general sense that there was a major argument in Australia, which I wasn't present for, and separating because of that.
Oh, it's Amber. You guys are saying it's Amber reporting
Did you
her
have
use of
any
cocaine,
understanding
etc.
as to why
Fair enough.
Dr. Kipper stated that none of this will be accepted by Ms. Heard?
I would be speculating on that, but we used joking terminology.
That'll be in this week's podcast that comes out
Based
tomorrow.
on your experience treating Ms. Heard at this time in March of 2015, would you agree, or did
Sister
you agree
Babylon, there
with
probably is
Dr.
something they
Kipper
want in their
that Ms.
closing.
Heard would not accept not seeing Mr. Depp for a period of time?
I don't know what that is yet.
I don't know specifically. As I think we talked about much earlier this morning, there was generally a sense of arguing, reconciling, and that sort of cycle happening frequently throughout their relationship.
It's like they would fight and separate and get back together and fight and separate and get back together.
Which are Exhibit 2.
You're welcome, Huxley. The muffins and the rum are all gone, Julie. Apologies. We took care of it. And yes, a lot of you are like, I'm just catching up in the chat. Or like, no, this was talking about Amber's addiction, probably. Which is fair. I might have misoriented myself to
Could
it.
we please go back to the entries from March 2015
Modern day dancing.
that are on the
We're doing a
page with the
court-a-thon.
case number 1695.
Everyone's going to have a civics understanding by the time we're done with this. But these video depots are just...
We covered this earlier, but it says in your March
Thank you,
9,
Bambi.
2015 entry, it says client states she would like to discuss recent events between her and husband with RN in private tomorrow. Do you see that?
Okay, we're back to the note that I wanted to talk about 10 minutes ago.
Oh, yes, I do.
Directing your attention to the entry for March 10th, 2015.
Tell me about
It
that.
says RN met client at home at 1600. Does that refresh your recollection that you did meet with her the next day?
No, it doesn't refresh my recollection. However, I would refer to my nursing note.
Do you
And
have
that's-
any reason to doubt that these notes are accurate?
No.
Hello, Thomas.
Do you recall what
Amber Heard looks super
Ms.
composed. I feel
Heard,
like she's getting ready to
showed
take the
any
stand.
injuries to you
Thanks for
on that-
streaming.
at that time?
As I work from home, you're welcome. I'm happy to
Oh,
be
I
in the
don't
background as
recall
y'all go
any-
about your days.
Any injuries.
Can we go back to Exhibit 2, which is the nursing notes, and specifically the entry for March 25th, 2015?
Well, we're an hour and
Just go
10
back
minutes
up
into
to
an hour and
the top
29
of this
minutes.
entry for March
So we only have
25th,
about
please.
19 minutes left. So that's good.
And I just want to ask you
At least we
one
can
more
see.
part of this. It says, states she is concerned about ability to trust fiance following argument on March 23rd, 2015. Do you have any recollection of Ms. Hurd expressing concern about her
I'm just trying
ability
to
to
read
trust Mr. Depp?
I would say I have a generalized memory of there being, as I stated before, jealousy and anxiety issues, including mistrust within the relationship.
Okay.
Do you recall Ms. Hurd ever telling you that she thought Mr. Depp was cheating on her?
No, I don't recall that specifically. I just, as I've said, have a general sense of
Hello, Debbie.
remembering.
Your daughter Kyla is very smart.
jealousy
Send a
being
super
an
chat to give you a
issue.
shout out.
If
Welcome to
we
the live stream.
could,
My mom can't figure out how to stream on YouTube, so you know that's where we're at.
Okay, I think, do you recall us talking about visiting Ms. Hurd and Mr. Depp
We'll
for
see.
Thanksgiving?
We'll do an
earlier
Ask a
today?
Lawyer Cat at some point. Probably for the members only live stream this month. We'll do an Ask a Lawyer
Does
Cat.
anything stand out in
Sure.
your mind as from that Thanksgiving dinner that you can recall?
Does Amber's team know how many more witnesses Johnny's team has generally?
Nothing
They should,
really
because they need to be
stands out
prepared.
Other than it was, I sort of have a general sense of it being a really jovial, fun time together.
This is exactly what
Do
it
you recall
is.
how long you stayed at the
They get
dinner?
along, they don't get along. They get along, they don't get along. They don't get along, they do get along.
Not specifically, I would assume a few hours.
Could we please just quickly go to the note from November? This is in Exhibit 2, and then entry for November 26, 2015, which is on page 16954.
No, Shayna, this is what's expected from nurses and doctors. They see so much that they know their recollections can be wrong. They stick to their notes. That's why they take thorough notes. What's in my notes is what I remember. I remember nothing outside of my notes. I didn't see anything. Look, if you ask me what I was doing November 26, 2015, there's no way. But when I look back through my case files for work, it's all noted. And it's all noted because I know I'm not going to remember that far back because it's the standard operating procedure for me and my work. So, the ins and outs of when they fought and what they fought about isn't going to stand out. Something out of the ordinary might, but she is going to stick to the notes and she shouldn't add in anything that is not in her notes. That's the proper way for a medical
Ms. Falati,
professional to
directing your
testify.
attention to
And that's
the
what she would have been
entry for
advised.
November 26, 2015.
So it just is what it is.
You you recall seeing this entry earlier today?
Yes.
And I
Kiki,
believe you testify that this is the entry from the
congratulations
Thanksgiving
on
dinner
going
that
back to
you
getting your
spent
law
with Ms. Hurd
degree.
and Mr. Depp.
We need
I
good
believe it
lawyers.
is.
You see in the middle where it says JD appeared calm and coherent.
Hello, foul-mouthed Lauren and JC.
I do.
Welcome.
Is that accurate to your recollection of that evening?
And I don't remember
Thank you,
that
Kalia.
specifically, but I just remember a general sense of it being a fun, happy evening.
So this is
She remembers it being fun.
consistent
Great.
with your recollection of that evening.
I would make that assumption.
And
She's assuming. Don't assume.
you
in a
have no reason
deposition.
to doubt the accuracy of your note. Correct. Directing your attention to the December 17th,
Thank you, Julie.
2015 entry.
I want to see the entries.
Will you just take a minute and read this over and confirm whether strike that. Do you recall going and visiting Ms. Heard on December 17th, 2015?
If it's in my notes,
I remember in so much as
it's in my notes.
my nursing notes regarding this night. I can't say that I recall much more than I have here, but I do remember visiting her.
Okay.
It says here that the client had visible bright red blood appearing at center of lower lip. Do you see that?
This
Yes.
is really the point, I think, of this witness.
Did you, other than the blood on Ms.
Yeah,
Heard's
the
lip,
video
do you recall
depositions are
seeing
hard.
any other injuries to her on that date?
I don't recall other than what I state.
If you saw other injuries, would you have noted them? Should be the next question.
Do you recall examining Ms. Heard's lip at all?
I don't think I examined it other than a visual examination. I didn't physically examine her lip.
The note says here, client also stated her head is bruised and that she lost clumps of hair in altercation. RN briefly looked at client's scalp, but was unable to visualize hematomas client had described. Is that what you wrote in your note?
Yes.
If you had observed the bruises or hematomas that Ms. Heard had described, would that have been reflected in your note?
Would assume, but again, I'm not trained in looking for those types of injuries, which is why my note continues that I encourage her to be seen by a professional that is trained to do so.
Looking for what types of
Please
injuries?
drop down to the next page, and this is
Scalp
the end
injuries?
portion of this note.
It's an interesting statement.
It says here, RN reminds client to hydrate with oral fluids and to limit abstain from alcohol. Client was consuming red wine with RN left, but assured RN she would consume in moderation. Is that what you wrote in your note?
It is, and I believe I miswrote there. Probably it should say client was consuming red wine when RN left, not with, just to clarify.
She's like, I was not drinking red wine. I was not drinking red wine. I wasn't drinking with her. Let's just be clear. That was a typo.
Why would you advise Ms. Heard on this occasion to limit,
hydrate?
or why did you advise Ms. Heard to limit or abstain from alcohol on this occasion?
I don't recall why I would be speaking to limit or abstain from alcohol on this occasion.
All right.
To confirm, based on your nursing notes, you were aware that Ms. Heard claimed to have been injured by Mr. Depp in December of 2015, right?
This is the point.
Correct.
And you went and actually saw her shortly after that alleged incident, correct?
Not that same day, but possibly the following day, I believe.
And you, on that occasion, you observed that she had a bloody lip, correct?
Correct.
And
Okay.
she told you that that was a result of the altercation with Mr. Depp, right?
Was it split? Was it bleeding like it was
If
drying
she
cracked?
had
I have
any other
questions.
injuries on that occasion, would you have recorded them in your nursing notes?
Make that assumption based upon my other notes that reference
Okay.
the blood on her lip.
I assume I would have reported it.
Could we go back to Exhibit 2
Would
and
have
the
recorded
nursing
it.
notes for April 21st, 2016?
I mean, she wrote down everything else. I assume I would have recorded any other injuries if I recorded the bloody lip. That's all we're getting out of this witness. I assume I would have noted it. Like if she had a broken eye or a black eye or a broken nose, would you have recorded it in your notes? She records everything else, including, I can't believe Johnny Depp isn't here yet.
1695.
Client invited her into dinner party.
Where
at
it
her
says,
home.
RN socialized with JD for 45 minutes. JD appeared coherent, oriented, and sociable. Thought process logical and clear. do you have any reason to doubt that that's accurate? That's an accurate description of Mr. Depp on that date?
Well, this is the other reason they want this witness in.
Jessica, I
This is the
apologize.
birthday party.
Can you just use your cursor to help me see the note that you were just reading?
This
So
one.
it's sorry, I actually don't have control of it, but it's down towards the middle. It says RN socialized with JD at times 45 minutes. JD appeared coherent, oriented, and sociable.
Oh, yes, I see it. Thank
Thought
you.
process is
process
logical and
logical
clear.
and
JD and
clear.
RN spent time laughing and watching a PSA. He and Amber Heard
Oh,
had
I'm sorry.
made.
What was your question regarding that?
Discussed trip to Coachella. Stage
Do
she and her
you
friends
have
leave
any
tomorrow around
reason to
noon.
doubt that that's an accurate description of how Mr. Depp appeared to you on
So that's the
April
birthday party.
21st, 2016?
I have no reason to doubt it. I would stand by my notes.
So that contradicts other
You
testimony
knew
about
Mr.
we
Depp
expect
was being treated for
Depp at the birthday party.
substance abuse issues by Dr. Kipper and Nurse Debbie Lloyd, correct?
All right, that was the
Yes.
point.
If Mr. Depp had appeared intoxicated on this occasion, is that something that you would have documented?
If it had been outwardly visible for either client, I would have made reference to that.
Because she focused on
We could go
addiction.
back to the nursing notes.
So she was
because
focused
it's
on
two
addiction
days.
and mental health. That was really her focus and her work here. So I'm not surprised that she would have been more
And, if we
keen
could go down
to
the
note
entry for May 11th.
sobriety states or lack of sobriety states.
Um,
And she states that much more clearly than she does about injuries. Like I would have noted that if I
now,
was there.
Ms.
Everything
Lottie,
else
you
she
looked
says,
at
I
this-
guess,
you
or I
looked at this, entry earlier today, correct?
So that contradicts anticipated her testimony about the
Directing your
birthday party.
attention to just a couple lines down, it says, client discussed her birthday trip to Coachella Music Festival. Trip was
And to take your nurse
April
to Coachella.
22nd, 2016 through April 24th, 2016. Client admits to illicit drug use during the trip and states she ingested mushrooms and MDMA simultaneously while also consuming alcohol, and states she vomited and was, quote, high for at least 24 hours straight, end quote. You see that?
And that's consistent with the
Yes, I do see that.
chauffeur's testimony
Did I read that correctly?
about the
you did.
mushrooms and the red wine and the
Do you
puking.
recall, well, first of all, do you recall Ms. Heard relaying this to you?
I don't recall these specifics that I state here in the note, but I remember sort of a conversation talking about the trip after they had returned.
And this starts out, client admits to illicit drug use. So am I correct that this is, based on these notes, this is something Ms. Heard reported to you directly?
Again, I don't remember these specifics. However, my usage of client admits refers to
Indicates
the client reporting something to me.
when I wrote client admits, what I mean is the client told me because they
And
admitted
Ms.
that to
Heard
me.
ever admitted to illicit drug use to you before this time?
I believe in reference to my nursing notes from when I first met her, he alluded
Yes.
to
They
previous
will ask who she meant in the op-ed.
substance use.
It says here, RN reminded client that illicit drug use will not be tolerated by medical staff and that any medications or drugs that are not prescribed can interfere and cause adverse effects with her prescribed medication. Client laughed and also reported using illicit drugs, mushrooms, and MDMA on May 9th, 2016, at home with a high-profile male acquaintance. Did I read
At
that
home with a
correctly?
high-profile male acquaintance is interesting to
Yes,
me.
you did.
Who's she doing drugs with at her
Um,
house? Chat. Who's she doing drugs with at her house in May? This is right around the time they're getting divorced, right
Ms.
before the divorce
Heard
filing.
Laughing
that
in
James Franco?
response to your
What do we think?
reminder about illicit drug use?
No, I don't recall that.
In your
Client laughed and
time
reported
frame
drug
for
use with
Ms. Heard,
high-profile.
did you ever see
male.
Mr. Depp physically abuse her?
Is that the T? Is that the only T? Some of you are saying Elon Musk. Some of you are saying
Did you
James
ever
Franco.
see Miss Heard physically abuse Mr. Depp?
I think probably James Franco too during that time because there's that elevator footage
Did
of
you
them
ever see Miss
that might
Heard
line up on that
throw
day. I need to go
anything
look.
at Mr. Depp in the time that you cared for her?
No, I did not witness that.
In
Yeah, I think Franco too. Because of the elevator footage, I think it's from that day. I'm gonna have to go back and look. Well, we'll probably get to it in the evidence. I'm just curious and I want to know
in
now.
the time that you treated her, did you ever see Miss Heard lose her temper?
Emily's on YouTube
As we
talking
talked
about me. She said it was
previously,
James Franco.
The one incident that I
Yes.
can remember is
I'm speculating.
in London, 2014. Yes, 2014. In regards to her phone being hacked and sensitive material being leaked.
Franco being high profile though. I mean, fair.
Did you ever feel that Miss Heard was hostile towards you at any time during your treatment of her?
No.
Did you ever feel like she was ignoring attempts by you to contact her?
That was the court. Definitely not Phil
Yes, I have
DeFranco.
a general
Phil DeFranco
memory
doesn't have the
of
energy for this bullshit. He's hanging out with his wife.
not often, I should excuse me,
Elevator was
misspoke.
522.
Of that happening on more than one occasion where I would reach out and not get a response. I remember feeling frustrated by that.
When had you treated domestic violence victims prior to this time?
The time that I worked with them was in nursing school. I don't want to say the specific place for confidentiality reasons, but it was for domestic violence victims. Sort of a safe.
Also, I think Amber Heard
Miss Lloyd,
perceives
do you remember when you were
DeFranco,
treating Miss
not
Heard,
DeFranco,
that
Franco.
at some point she had
See, y'all got me.
a cyst on
Franco
her
as
eyelid?
high profile. I think she perceives that. And that's what she would have
Yes,
reported
that
to her
sounds
nurse.
familiar.
Okay. And do you remember that you had a procedure to have that cyst removed?
Yes.
And was that a surgical procedure to your recollection?
From what I recall, that was handled at an outpatient surgical center.
No bombs.
Other than that, I don't know the details of that specific process.
Do you recall whether Miss Heard had any marks around her eye after having that procedure?
I don't
Oh.
recall. I remember a topical ointment being applied.
Was it
but I don't
Amica
recall
cream?
if there were marks on her eye or not.
This is important.
At this
actually.
point, the questioning switches back to counsel for Ms. Heard.
All right, thank you.
Do you see
Yeah.
Falati 93?
Yes.
Okay.
So she
And-
had
and-
some kind of a cyst removed off of her
And
face
this is
and had a
another
topical
picture
ointment for
of Amber
bruising, but we didn't have a
from May
date.
21st, 2016.
Correct. This is a picture of Ms. Heard.
And Amber sent you this text on May 21st, 2016.
I believe so based on the timestamp.
And the same for this picture on the next page. Amber sent you this picture of her.
Correct.
And the same for this page, the next page. Amber sent you this picture of her on May 21st.
Yes.
When you saw Amber on December 17th, 2015,
Thanks, let's talk beauty.
and you spoke about that. How long were you with her? Do you recall?
Don't recall. I would assume based on the fact that I stopped by briefly, maybe an hour or two.
Okay. Did you go inside her house or were you outside the door?
This is now Amber Heard's lawyers
From
asking
what I
the questions.
recall, I was inside
This is baby
Okay.
Rottenborn.
the penthouse. Yes.
By the way,
Whose
when
name I
you
keep
saw
forgetting.
Amber on December 17th, was she wearing makeup or was
Mr.
not? Do
Cat.
you
It's
recall?
Mr. Cat.
I
Right.
don't recall. Yeah, I don't recall.
All right, thank you.
Are we done?
Before we get to the next witness, could I have council approach on the plaintiff's 46?
I believe these are the exhibits submitted earlier this morning. The attorney in the blue shirt was getting ready to stand back up. I wonder if they do have another witness, because I imagine Ben Chu, lead counsel right here, or Camille Vasquez will be the attorney to actually rest. This was the attorney that was just doing the questioning. I've already forgotten his name. Needlehoft. Yes, thank you, chat. Needlehoft. Mr. Cat. We're going with lawyer Cat from now on, because he's like, you didn't know. Yesterday he said it could be my cat doing the Google searches. There were other things he said before that, but I got stuck at my cat was doing the Google searches for Johnny Depp when the witness was testifying about the Q scores and the reputational
Plaintiff 46
damage.
is in evidence. Your next witness?
Let's see if there is a next witness. Oh, yep. This dude does experts. So it's probably an
Yes,
expert.
Your Honor. Plaintiff calls Michael Spindler.
All right, Mr. Spindler.
So we're getting another witness. I'm glad they didn't
Yes.
end on that witness. I thought we were almost done, but this is a live in-person witness. This lawyer, whose name I don't remember at all, has been only coming into court to cross-examine the expert witness, or to direct examination the expert witnesses. So he seems to be one of the more experienced attorneys, in that he's been very good with the expert witnesses, but he's only been in crap. It's going to be that kind of a day. He's only been in court for expert witnesses. He was the one who did the direct of Dr. Curry and the experts yesterday. I don't know what that horrible fucking noise is. That's in the court. Everyone's also looking around. This is a live witness, so there shouldn't be a noise like that. That's odd. Is it lawn care day? Like, is that a lawnmower? What the fuck is that? Here's the witness. It's a very brief swearing in. So let's see who this is.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Would you state your name for the record?
Michael Spindler.
Where do you live?
I live in the Los Angeles, California area.
What's your occupation?
I'm a forensic accountant.
Well, there we
What do
go.
you mean by forensic accountant?
Well, a forensic accountant does accounting work that is a bit more investigative in nature. So it's essentially taking a look at business records and accounting records in connection with some form of business issue.
We love
How long have
an
you worked in
accountant.
that field?
I've been a forensic accountant full-time since 1990.
What'd you do before that?
Before that, I spent about 10 years doing auditing of financial statements.
Okay, so
Can
always.
you describe your educational background?
Yes, I graduated in 1981 from the State University of New York at Albany with a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting and a minor in economics.
I love seeing where people
Are
went
you
to school. and
currently
pass.
employed?
I am.
Do you work
Who's
for
your
yourself?
employer?
B. Riley Advisory Services.
What's B. Riley Advisory Services?
It's a national forensic accounting boutique firm that does forensic accounting, business
You're
valuations and
welcome, RC
appraisals,
Cola.
and bankruptcy and restructuring work.
Are you working
How
on the
long have
Girardi
you been
case? We have
employed with B.
questions.
Riley?
Since January of 2015.
What did you do for work prior to B. Riley?
Well, it's a long career, so I'll give you the highlights.
This
I
is
spent
gonna be a
about 30
resume 'cause he's an
years
expert.
with national accounting firms.
They're going to qualify
as
him as an expert.
partner at two different
So we're going to hear a
firms.
full resume of all the
And
fancy stuff
also
and letters
was
after the name.
involved with a couple of forensic accounting boutique firms.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you hold any certifications?
I do.
What are they?
I'm a certified public accountant with licenses from
Alphabet
6
soup.
states.
Here comes the
New
alphabet
York,
soup.
California, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and Hawaii.
Here's the alphabet soup.
I'm also certified in financial forensics. I'm a certified fraud examiner. I'm accredited in business valuation and a certified anti-money laundering specialist.
How
Do
much
you
did
participate in
Amber
any
Heard spend on
professional
wine?
organizations?
I do.
What are those?
Well, I've had leadership positions in a couple of them. I'll mention the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. I was the president of the Los Angeles chapter, and I'm currently on their board. I've been actively involved with the California Society of
My
CPAs.
chair and I are
I
fighting.
was the president of the Los Angeles chapter. It had 11,000 members at the time.
We've got
I was
21,000
also
on
on Cal
stream.
CPA
Look at that.
Council, which is kind of their board of directors. and also member of the Board of Trustees of the Cal CPA Education Foundation.
Have you testified as an expert before?
I have.
Yep.
Approximately how many times?
About 100 times, roughly. About
That's a fucking
half
lot.
of that in trials and arbitrations.
Looks to the jury.
What's your typical role?
I'm
in those
qualified.
Typically, it can take a number of forms, but commonly I will testify with respect to damages.
cases? Have you done any film industry work?
Damages.
Yes, I have.
What was that?
There we go.
I've done work involving all of the major film studios, and I've also done work on behalf of writers, directors, producers, actors, studio executives.
Do you find those in Hollywood have their money
Your
go
Honor, I'd like
missing?
to Proffer
questions.
Mr. Spindler as an expert in forensic accounting.
All right, any objection? All
Yeah,
right,
don't
so moved.
object.
Thank you.
Then we have to do a much longer bit. Let him just testify to what he's
What
testifying
work did
to.
you do in this case?
Well, in this case, I was asked to take a look at
You're welcome,
issues with
Lisa.
respect to lost earnings for Mr. Depp.
Damages
in
to
particular,
defamation.
Did you do?
I looked at accounting
Money.
records that were produced by Mr. Depp's accounting firm, Ed White and Company. I looked at
Oh, already testified.
trial exhibits. I looked at deposition testimony. I looked at some trial testimony. And I've looked at various other documents and exhibits in connection with the case.
What
My little nerd heart's very
specific
happy.
period did you analyze with respect to lost earnings?
I looked at the period following the publication of the op-ed. So I looked at the period from December 18th, 2018 through October 31st, 2020.
What materials did you review?
I looked at the accounting records that have been produced by Mr. Depp's accountants.
Any other materials?
Various deposition transcripts, trial testimony, contracts, etc.
What conclusions did you draw from your review?
I concluded that Mr. Depp suffered lost earnings of approximately $40 million.
It's a lot of money.
How did you reach that conclusion?
Well, there are really two main components to that. The first relates to the loss of the role of Captain Jack Sparrow in the Pirates 6 film. So the loss related to the loss of that role in that franchise picture was $22.5 million based on testimony provided by Mr. Jack Wiggum. In
Which we
addition,
saw
we looked
yesterday.
at, yes,
Wiggum was
Did you
yesterday?
do
Wiggum was
anything
yesterday.
else with respect to Pirates 6?
well, we also calculated the net earnings that Mr. Depp would have received from that.
Okay. And what did you base your analysis of Pirates 6 on?
Based on the testimony of Mr. Jack Wiggum.
Okay. What else did you do with respect to the lost earning analysis that you did?
Well, the other main component to this is taking a look at all the other roles, the non-franchise films. So those
That's fair. What else has he done or would have
films,
done?
studio films, independent films, and endorsements that Mr. Depp realizes and enjoys. So in connection with that, we looked at his bookings for the year 2017.
Your mic is popping.
And by
Could you just
bookings, I mean
back? There we go. Just back up.
instances
Perfect.
where Mr. Depp
Lovely.
is
Stay
hired
there.
for a project.
Stay there.
And he receives that first money related to that project in
Millions on millions on
2017.
millions on
So,
millions, Nora.
in other words, you've got a deal
Millions.
and cash has showed up, so it's real.
Thank you,
So we
Chuckles.
looked at his 2017 bookings and we calculated for that year, for that period, his bookings
so much
were
better. Thank
about
you for backing up.
$17.5 million. The main components of that, Mr. Wiggum testified to. We then looked at the period of time following the op-ed of December 18th, 2018 through October 31st, 2020. So if annual earnings was $17.5 million, in what is known as a typical year, a reasonable base year, at that rate, what would we have expected Mr. Depp to have earned
Yes, JP.
from that period of October 18th,
Of course.
2018 through October 31st, 2020? And we then compared that to his bookings, his actual bookings for that period of time.
Why did you use 2017 as a typical base year?
Well, a couple of reasons.
Though
First
they
of
did
all,
testify
Mr.
he
Wiggum
worked a
testified
lot
that that was
in
a
17.
typical year for Mr.
Mm.
Depp. And
He
it's
said he
also
worked
the
a lot
most
in
recent
2017.
clean year that was experienced. In 2018, you had the publication of the op-ed. That didn't
Okay.
happen in 2017.
Did you do anything, did you prepare anything to assist the jury with respect to the analysis that you performed?
We'll
We did
Oh,
prepare a chart.
a
yes.
demonstrative. We'll talk about Wiggum's testimony a little bit because Wiggum said
Go on, may I
2017 was a
approach?
busy
All right.
year.
Sure.
And in 2018, Johnny Depp was resting for the first half of the year and then had just a few things he was doing. So I think there's room for some argument from Amber Heard's team saying 2017 was not a normal year. It was an exceptionally busy year, and 2018 was more of a normal year. But again, the jury will fix the amount of damages.
Your Honor,
They have to
I think
prove
this
some
is
damage.
Plaintiff Exhibit
They could
12,
prove $3 in
I'm
damages
going
or
to,
$1 in damages for
I'm
defamation.
not
They have to
gonna
prove
move it into
some
evidence. I'm simply just gonna
damage.
use it,
40
with
million.
your
If
permission
they
to publish it to the jury
dispute the
so that
40
the
million, I don't think there's any
witness
dispute
can explain it.
that he's
Any
going
objection
to
demonstrative 12?
that he lost.
All right, demonstrative, well. Do
Demonstratives
you
are
have
not
electronic
evidence.
Copy of it? Okay, that's fine.
So demonstratives are not evidence. They're not marked into evidence. They're to help the jury understand the testimony. That's why they're talking about marking it into evidence. We are going to just screenshot it and share it on Twitter, though.
Who did this chart?
I, in combination with people working under my direction from my firm.
All right. Can you explain to the jury what you've done here?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
What have you
So,
done
As
here?
we discussed
It's a
previously.
very good direct examination. Tell me this.
Mr. Depp
Tell me
lost
that.
the role in
What does
Pirates
this mean?
6. And the effect of that was lost earnings of $22.5 million based on Mr. Wiggum's testimony. And then what we've shown here is the 10% agent commission. That
So
would
why
have been
did you deduct 10%?
because that's
That would have
the
gone to the agent. He
rate
didn't earn it.
for Mr. Depp's agent. That's what his agent receives out of Mr. Depp's earnings in connection with setting up a project for Mr. Depp. So we deduct that 10%, which comes to $2,250,000, just 10% of 22.5 million. And the net effect of that, the amount that Mr. Depp would have received after deducting that fee would have been $20,250,000. And that's the first component of this.
What did you do in terms of the analysis of lost bookings for non-franchise films?
Okay, so that's the next section of the chart. And as I mentioned before, his 2017 bookings were about $17.5 million. So that rate of earnings over the period from mid-December through the end of October 2020, or mid-December 2018 through the end of October 2020, would come to about $32.8, $32.9 million. We then compared that to actual bookings during that period of time of mid-December 2018 through the end of October 2020. That amount was $10,586,000. We deducted those bookings, the actual amounts, from what we would have expected to arrive at his lost bookings for non-franchise activity, and that comes to about $22.3 million. And once again,
Oh, I love a
we've deducted
table.
the 10%
I love a
agent's
chart.
commission.
I love a demonstrative.
So the net
I love that they accounted for
effect
the agent
of
commission.
lost earnings to
appropriate.
Mr. Depp after that agent's fee
Live witness.
for non-pirate films comes to about $20 million.
What does the figure at the bottom corner of the chart, the $40,318 and
It says I equals C plus H.
$40,318,237?
Obviously.
What does that represent?
Well, that's your grand total. That's the sum of those two components for total lost earnings of $40.3 million.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
No further questions. Cross examination. How much did you get paid to make that chart? Who's doing cross? How much did you get paid? Aren't you biased? You can't know these numbers. Rottenborn.
Good morning, Mr. Spindler.
How
Good
fast are
morning.
you going to talk this morning, bro?
So this lawsuit isn't the first time you've worked with Johnny Depp, is it?
It is not.
You've
Good
worked with
question.
him in a lawsuit that he had in the past with his old law firm, correct?
Yes, just a little bit of work. Yes.
And So in this second go round as a paid expert for Mr. Depp, you're making $550 an hour is what he's paying you. Is that right?
That's the amount that my firm bills. I do not receive that.
Fair. He has overhead.
Now, the subject matter of your opinion testimony in this case is the
A reasonable
economic
amount.
damages that Mr. Depp has allegedly suffered as a result of Ms. Heard's December 8, 2018 op-ed, correct?
Correct, yes.
And this is the first case in which you've testified as an expert relating to economic damages claimed by an actor, correct?
First time I've testified to, but I've done that work before.
And you understand that this case is about only whether Ms. Heard's December 18th, 2018 op-ed constitutes defamation of Mr. Depp, correct?
I appreciate the pacing here.
That's my understanding.
And you
Not
understand that
aggressive.
this case isn't about anything else Ms. Heard has ever said or done, correct?
I
I-
appreciate it.
Believe that's correct.
Not
And
aggressive.
to be clear,
Just a clear
you were
question.
testifying only as to alleged damages, right?
Did somebody give Rottenborn breakfast? This is a much better
Correct.
cross so
So
far.
you are not offering any opinion or any testimony on whether those specific damages that you just discussed were caused by the op-ed, correct?
That's correct.
And you're assuming for the purposes of your report that the damages that you're testifying about were caused by Amber's op-ed, correct?
Yes.
So you're therefore not looking into whether anything else that's happened with Mr. Depp's life or career could have caused him economic damages, correct?
It's a good cross.
I believe that's generally correct, yes.
So you're not looking at whether the article published in the UK in June 2018 calling Mr. Depp a wife beater caused him the damages, correct?
Correct.
You're not looking at whether the lawsuit that he brought in the UK against the publisher of that article caused him those damages, right?
Correct.
You're not looking at any of the evidence that came out in that lawsuit about alleged instances of abuse against Amber,
This
correct?
is a much better style of cross.
Correct.
It's going to be much more effective.
You're not looking at whether the consequences of Mr. Depp's drug and alcohol use have caused him the damages you're discussing, correct?
Correct.
You're not looking at whether the worsening performance at the box office of Mr. Depp's movies over time has caused him the damages that you're testifying about,
Well,
correct?
don't smirk. You're going to ruin it.
Correct.
Smart.
And I'm not acknowledging any of this being accurate. I'm just saying that that wasn't part of my calculations.
Sure, I understand. I just want to make clear what you didn't look at, what you're not opining on. And so to round that out, you're not considering even the impact of Amber obtaining a restraining order in May 2016 and whether that may have caused him damages. That's not part of your opinion, correct?
Well, since we were taking a look at lost bookings using 2017 as a base year, any activity that preceded that would have been baked into those calculations that way.
And we'll get to those calculations in a minute because I'm going to put up the chart that you put in your expert report.
Great.
But first I want to talk about Pirate 6 because that's basically the two components of your damages is Pirate 6 and then this non-franchise lost bookings, right?
It
Correct.
is leading.
So for Pirate
Cross is
6
leading.
specifically,
Cross is supposed to be
you
leading.
assume that he would have made $22.5 million on Pirate 6, right?
Correct.
And you took Jack Wiggum's word for it in making that assumption, correct?
I based it on his testimony, yes.
Now, you never saw a contract that Mr. Depp had for Pirate 6, correct?
It's a good
Correct.
cross.
Because no contract exists, to your knowledge, correct?
So far as I know, I've not seen one.
And you didn't take into consideration
going so
Jack Wiggum's
fast.
testimony that Disney was non-committal about Mr. Depp being in Pirate 6 even before the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't take into consideration the press articles that came out prior to the op-ed that suggested that Disney had made a decision not to cast Mr. Depp in Pirate 6, correct?
Correct.
And you have no idea whether Pirate 6 will ever be made, right?
I wouldn't know that.
And you have no idea if Disney has decided one way or the other whether Mr. Depp would be in it or whether they'd offer him a role in it if it is ever made, correct?
He's fucking
Well,
Captain
my
Jack
understanding is that
Sparrow.
they made a public statement that he would not.
And you have, if Disney decided that he wouldn't be in it, you have no idea when they decided that, correct?
I know that there was a public announcement subsequent to the publication of the op-ed.
What public announcement are you talking about?
I believe
I
there
don't know,
was
the
an
one you
interview of
provided
Mr. Bailey that
Ah.
was published several days after.
Oh, okay. Well, that interview of Mr. Bailey didn't say that he wasn't going to be in it. In fact, have you looked at the article that the jury
that's
saw the headline
compound.
for yesterday, dated November 5th, 2020,
The jury didn't say it,
about
and that's
Mr. Depp
compound.
potentially not being in Pirate 6? Have you looked at that article? I assume not.
That's
No.
Okay.
what the fuck are you even
And you
asking?
didn't take into
Stop
account
it.
Mr.
Slow
Depp's
down.
statement that
Slow back
he
down.
wouldn't do Pirate 6 for
We were doing
$300 million and a million out pockets, correct?
That sounded like hyperbole to me. I didn't take that very seriously. It
Did you
sounded like
take the
somebody who
alpacas
was,
into
a bit
consideration?
hurt or in pain
So
as a result of the loss of the role.
So if Mr. Depp didn't lose a role in Pirate 6 because of the op-ed, but he lost it for other reasons, then your damages opinion relating to Pirate 6 would drop to $0, correct?
I believe that's correct. If it's not lost for that reason, if it's lost for some other independent reason, then I think that would need to be considered.
Okay, thank you. Now let's
That's it. Sit
shift
down.
gears and
Nope,
talk
done.
about the non-franchise earnings for a moment.
Rottenborn's
You claim
paying
this number
attention
is
to
about
TikTok,
$21 million,
hating him.
right? Roughly.
I don't think he is.
20.
But he,
We'll
This is a
pull
better
it
story.
up.
pull it up.
Well, actually, we'll.
Yeah, just do it now.
We'll look at
He
the chart
needs to
here.
slow down. He
$20
gets
million,
excited and
about $20
speeds
million
up.
after agent fees.
Correct.
Okay. And to reach that number, you looked at what his historical earnings records showed, right?
And she was kind
Correct.
of amused by something. I just don't know what. Everybody's in blue today.
And you got that information from
blue,
Ed White's
blue, blue.
office.
Yes,
Securities in blue.
And you assumed that the information you got from Ed White's office was accurate, right?
I did. Yes.
Can we please pull up the
Good. We've
chart
slowed back
that's in his
down.
expert report?
It's
Your
a-
Honor, this is
It's a much more
or
effective
Mr. Spindler, I'd
cross.
like you to take a look at this and confirm for the court that
When
this
he
is the chart
slows
that's
down.
in your expert report, if you would.
It appears to be, yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask for permission to publish this just as a demonstrative.
Any
No
objection?
objection, Your
All
Honor.
right.
This is a much better cross than it was. This is the first
So,
cross
Mr.
I've really liked from
Spindler,
their side.
this chart shows Mr. Depp's earnings by year based on the information that you received from Ed White, correct?
Correct.
From 2009 to 2020.
Yes.
And it shows that from about 2009 to 2019, and I didn't add these up visually, but from your report, you say that Mr. Depp made about $459 million.
Do you visually add? How do you add
Correct.
visually?
Correct.
He added them here.
Now, the two highest earning years in this time period were 2010 and 2011, right?
Yes.
You see that? You made about $70 million in 2010.
It's fair to ask about this here.
I do.
2015,
Yes.
And then the
2016,
third highest
2017.
year was 2014, right?
Yes.
Shade under 60 million. And you'd agree that from the period 2010 to 2020, his annual income on average was decreasing.
Yes, but you have to take a look at the components of this.
Right.
And,
And in
as we-
2000,
asking about.
that I was just wanted to get your agreement that from 2010 to 2020, his annual income was decreasing. Now, in 2020, he earned more than he did in 2016, correct?
on an overall basis, yes.
And in 2020, he earned more
These are
than he
fair
did
questions.
in 2018, correct?
Yes,
After
just
the
based on
op-ed.
earnings.
And in 2018 and
finish.
2019, he earned an almost identical amount, correct?
Yes,
And
just based on
2019 and
earnings.
2020 were both after the publication date of the op-ed, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now I want to talk about some of these non-franchise earnings because when I looked at your chart that was displayed to the jury, I didn't see anything specific listed. So can you just confirm for me that you can't name a single lost business opportunity other than Pirate 6 that Mr. Depp lost as a result of the op-ed?
It's a good question.
That's correct. That's
And
not the
you can't
nature of this
identify a
calculation.
single television, just if you could just answer my questions, yes or no, as best you can, please. You can't identify a single television project that Mr. Depp allegedly lost out on as a result of the op-ed, correct?
Correct. That's not the
And
nature
you
of this.
can't identify a single
That's for
advertising
redirect. Just answer
campaign
yes or no.
or marketing opportunity that Mr. Depp lost out on as a result of the op-ed, correct?
Right. These are the
And
calls.
so
that he did
it's
not
fair to
receive.
say that for the lost opportunities that you can't name, you're assuming, as with Pirate 6, that those opportunities were lost because of the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
Now, you mentioned something interesting in your direct and in your report. You say that you used 2017 as the base year to calculate what you claim Mr. Depp's should have earned in 2019.
This is a fair question because
2020,
2017 was
Correct.
higher. They didn't average the
let's
years.
take a look at this because 2017 he made that much, correct? About 45 million or so.
I wonder what he's
Yes.
photographing.
But in 2016 he made just a shade over 20, correct?
Correct.
2018 he made a shade under 20, right?
Yes.
Same with 2019, right?
Correct.
And then 2020, he actually made more than he had in the prior 2 years or in 2016 and made about, what, 22, 23 million or so. Is that right?
Right. But as I indicated, this is
So-
just based on earnings. You need to get behind it.
Right. So you said.
You need to get behind
there were a
that. He's
couple
not gonna get
interesting
behind
things
that,
You
my
said
guy.
that the most recent, that 2017, I want
cross.
to explore why you relied on that. Now, first of all, you said that you relied on Jack Wiggum's testimony that 2017 was a reasonable year to use, correct?
Correct. yes.
Despite the fact that 2017, he made more than twice as much as he's made in any year over the last 5 years, correct?
This is fair.
Yes,
And you
but when
say
you're
that
taking a
this-
look
you said
at
that the most
their,
recent-
if I can,
No.
Finish this
you
thought?
answered
You
my
don't get to
question.
finish.
No,
Nope.
I want to get to your thoughts because you said
You don't get to finish.
that
It's
one of
cross.
the reasons you used 2017 was because it was you said, I wrote it down, the most recent clean year, right?
correct.
And then I think you explained, you said because the op-ed was written in 2018, right?
Correct.
But the op-ed wasn't written until December 18th, 2018, correct?
It wasn't published till then.
So if 2017 was clean, then the first 352 days
question.
of 2018 were also clean, weren't they, sir?
If I may explain,
No,
Mr. Wiggum testified that for the first half of 2018, Mr. Depp chose to take some vacation time. Also, he chose to go touring in the summer with his band, and then he did a film towards the end of 2018. With the publication of the op-ed in December of 2018, that would have impacted the prospects for that film that was done in 2018. So he chose to do just the one film in 2018.
that's fair.
And then the impact of the op-ed on that film would have meant that it was not a clean period. You could not have looked at that film to get a good sense of what his earnings should have been because he didn't have the chance to earn box office bonuses or
Okay,
profit participations.
well, let's,
So that's why 2017 is a much, much better year to use than 2018.
well,
and
let's
also when
break
you
that,
take a
let's
look
break
at the
that down.
bar for-
I think let's break that down a little bit. You said that 2017 was a much cleaner year, but isn't it also true that there were other reasons why 2018 wasn't clean? For example, the April 2018 article by Dan Wooten calling Mr. Depp a wife beater, correct?
That did occur in that year, yes.
The June 2018 lawsuit that Mr. Depp filed in the UK against the Sun for calling him a wife beater, correct?
Yes,
And how about the October articles reporting that Disney had decided to move on from Mr. Depp and not cast him in Pirate 6, correct?
I'm sorry, what effect would that have had?
Well, it came before the op-ed.
He's
so it's
asking
another
you.
reason why 2018 isn't a clean year in your mind, correct? An article
No,
2
those
months
aren't the
before the
reasons
op-ed,
why-
an
those-
article
those-
2 months before the op-ed.
You can't put
saying
words
that-
in his
that
mouth. He's not
Disney
going to agree with
decided
you.
not to cast Mr. Depp.
Don't
That
smirk
would
at him.
also keep 2018 from being what you would call a clean year, correct?
I've described the reasons why I believe 2018 was not a clean year.
Okay. Now, you're aware, as we talked about, that Amber's op-ed wasn't published till December 18th, 2018, correct?
Correct.
So Mr. Depp could not have lost out on any opportunities as a result of the op-ed prior to December 18th, 2018, correct?
Correct.
And he couldn't have lost out on any opportunities in 2017 as a result of the op-ed. Fair?
Fair.
And he couldn't have lost out on any opportunities in 2016 as a result of the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
And so in calculating your damages, you didn't use 2016, you didn't use 2018, but you chose to use 2017, correct?
Yes,
And
for very
Mr.
good
Depp
reasons.
still made more in
Just answer yes or no,
2020
though.
than he did in both 2016 and 2018 before the op-ed was published, correct?
Correct. And that's
Nothing
just
further.
based on
Thank you, sir.
earnings.
All right,
There
redirect?
will be
Yep.
redirect,
Thank
dude. Just wait.
You explained 2018.
He wants
Why
to
didn't
over
you use
explain,
2016?
but he needs to wait till
Well,
redirect to
first
do
of
it.
all,
This is now
2017
redirect.
was a more recent year. 2017 was a year in which Mr. Wiggum indicated that that was a typical year for Mr. Depp. He had a studio film, he had a independent film, he had an endorsement deal. 2016 is further back in time. As I understand it, his earnings capacity for that year would have been just about the same or even higher than 2017, because there was an endorsement deal that Mr. Depp passed on that would have been worth a lot of money, according to Ms. Jacobs.
I expect
So
experts to know.
2017.
He's testified
made
100
the most
times. He
sense.
knows.
Why
He's
did you
testified
ultimately
100
use
times.
the method that you did to determine
Yes,
the lost
Brittany.
earnings?
People just get
Because it
combative.
just makes sense. It's the correct approach to take. You're taking a look at what Mr. Depp would have been expected to earn in a typical year, and then you're comparing that to the period of time where you're analyzing following the op-ed from December of 2018 through October of 2020. So you're taking a look at what you would have expected him to earn. It's very simple compared to what he actually did earn.
No further questions, Your
All
Honor.
right, thank you. Is this witness subject to
Good
recall?
redirect.
All right.
This
Sir,
is
since you're
that
subject
done.
to recall, do not discuss your testimony with anybody, but since you are giving expert testimony, you're free to stay into the courtroom, okay?
That was a good
sir?
redirect.
Thank you. You have a good
Thank
day.
you very much.
All right, have,
Thank you,
watch
everyone.
watch your step there.
No point in acknowledging the other stuff. Next witness.
Plaintiff rests his case.
All
Plaintiff
right, plaintiff
rests.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and take our morning recess. It may be a little longer because I have a few issues to take up with the attorneys, but then we'll proceed after that, okay? So please do not talk about the case and do not do any outside research. okay?
Bam.
Thank you.
The plaintiff rests. Hopefully we'll get to hear them doing the motion to dismiss. That should come now. Hopefully they will do it in open court without the jury present, and we will get to hear it. Johnny Depp's case is done. We are getting into Amber Heard's case. Johnny Depp will have no more witnesses on his case in chief. We will see Amber Heard's motion to dismiss, then Amber Heard's case in
Mhm.
defense and
Why don't we go
her.
ahead and take our recess till 11:45, and then I'll come back and entertain the motions at that time, okay?
That will be the motion to dismiss. Good. So we're going to be on break. I'm going to answer questions and go through that. But we are now done with Johnny Depp's case. Amber Heard's team will make a motion to dismiss at 11:45 Eastern time. So in about 15 minutes. So we'll get to see that. And then we will get into Amber Heard's case in chief and her defense. She will do both at the same time, just like Johnny Depp did both at the same time. So we might see Amber Heard on the stand late this afternoon. I believe they have one witness that they intend to call before that. So we might get to the beginning of her testimony today. So Johnny Depp rests, motion to dismiss, Amber Heard's case in chief and defense kind of running at the same time. And then there should be time for Depp's team to have rebuttal witnesses, meaning that because they bear the burden of proof, because they filed the initial lawsuit, that they will be able to bring in some witnesses to rebut. That was the very first cross-examination from Amber Heard's team that I thought was tremendously effective because the style didn't override it. Rottenborn, you could see when he starts getting a little too, I don't want to say hyped, but a little too agitated, he starts going too fast. And then the witnesses start getting defensive. That might be a stylistic choice. for him to try to get the witness seeming like they're hiding something. It might not, but it will be very interesting to see what happens next. So I'm going to talk about the motion to dismiss right now. And then if we can timestamp this, because I know people are going to come back and look. At what's going on with the motion to dismiss. So I'm going to absolutely explain that now. The motion to dismiss is Amber Heard's side, and this happens in every single case. It is pro forma. So they are going to say, the essentially something along the lines of the plaintiff has not proven all the elements. So a jury cannot come back with a verdict no matter what, because as a matter of law, the case has not been proven to all the elements, and as a matter of law it has to be dismissed. This is something that rarely happens, because normally the plaintiff and the prosecution prove their case and they prove enough elements that it goes to the jury to determine the fact. This case is a question of fact. Who do you believe? Do you believe Amber Heard was a victim of abuse, therefore her article is not defamatory? Or do you believe Johnny Depp, that she was not in fact a victim, that her article was defamatory, and that his statements, his lawyer's statements against her, are in fact not defamatory? So this is a question of fact. But this is a motion that they need to make. They reserve it for right on appeal, and it is made in just about every single case. It actually just worked in the Kim Kardashian Blac Chyna case, where Blac Chyna sued Kim Kardashian and others in the Kardashian family for defamation and other things. And at the end of Blac Chyna's case in chief, when she rested, Kim Kardashian's attorney made a motion to dismiss and is like, you've shown no statements that Kim Kardashian has made. And the judge was like, you're right, yeet, and dismissed Kim Kardashian out of the case before the jury deliberated as to her. So that's what the motion to dismiss is going to be. From the way the court said we will resume back here, I assume that we will get to see that motion happen in open court. I hope, fingers crossed, that we will get to see them argue the motion to dismiss, because we'll get a little insight into where they're going for closing arguments as well. And that would be very interesting. So we will get it in about 15 minutes. Until then, I'm going to answer questions and super chats. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being a Lawnerd. This afternoon is going to get real interesting. Magistria, I'm terrible at pronouncing names, so I will apologize in advance always. I don't get why it's shocking that Johnny Depp pays people. It's not shocking. They are trying to prove bias. Oh, you're getting paid by him. You'll say whatever he wants. It's going to happen. Depp's team is absolutely going to ask the same questions on cross-examination. How much are you going to get paid? Blah, 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 blah. So that's going to happen. Is the motion to dismiss in front of the jury? No. The motion to dismiss is argued just before the judge. Is this motion to dismiss for appeal? I mean, they have to reserve the issue, but they have to make the argument. So let's get through some of the super chats. Day Lucky 13, maybe Johnny Depp's team will rest. Yes, this trial is so compelling. Yes, and we've now rested. Hey, Emily. Hey, Law Nerds. Wondering if you'll share any insights on the implication of the drafted Supreme Court Roe versus Wade ruling, not in today's live stream. Again, it is a draft ruling. The Supremes do change draft rulings. They do change votes. So no, I have not had a chance to read it, and it is a draft ruling. So no, not today. Today, we are focusing on Depp versus Heard. When I have a chance to read it, and if it becomes a final ruling, I will probably do a podcast episode about it. That tends to be where my more succinct content lives. Happy Thursday. Thank you. And the mods. This is the best channel on YouTube. Appreciate it. And huge love for the moderators who keep this a great place to be. Sending another super chat regarding my question. New here. Love your channel. Sorry if you already answered, but if Depp wins, can he get a retrial for the UK case? Miss J, I haven't addressed that today, but no, the UK case is done and dusted, completely separate question, a completely separate matter of law, a completely separate legal system. So no, we are not going to see anything else with the UK case. The appeal was denied. They were answering a different question, and I have breakdowns of that both on the podcast, The Emily Show, and on this channel on my Johnny Depp playlist. The question asked in the UK was, did the Sun have enough to go on? Did they have enough reason to believe Amber Heard? That's a very different question than here, because the Sun is relying on her and what she said. Here, she knows if she's telling the truth or not. She's the person. I love you. You shed such a great light on this case. Hello from the Philippines. It's 10 p.m. right now, but I still listen to you. I can't imagine knowing what's going to come this afternoon. I mean, we're only about an hour and 40 minutes in. We have a very long court day, 6+ hours of court to be like, oh my God, do I have to go to bed now? It would be very hard for me. I would be gagging. Um, Question, I understand that this judge is consistent in her bad rulings, but can there be any sanctions for a judge who seems not to understand and apply the law? I mean, they can get voted out, but this judge's rulings. They're very, very broad in some of the hearsay things in particular. Question, what situations does the judge grant the dismissal if there really isn't enough evidence? So like I just talked about in the Kardashian Black China case, they hadn't proved any statements Kim Kardashian made. They're like, hey, you didn't make any statements. So no. But it's a rare thing. But you really have to not have enough. Like the jury legally can't consider this. You didn't prove it. Like a defendant was never identified. Well, you never proved that this person did it. You never showed that this person was there. So things like that. Question, does Johnny Depp's team have the same time for cross-exam on her witness, or when her side starts, do they get extra time? No, everybody was appointed time. Cross-examination counts against time. I don't know where the court tally is, but Johnny Depp's team has the time they have. Will they cross-examine Amber Heard for a day plus? Probably. Probably. It'll probably be another 4+ days of testimony. What happens if when Amber gets caught in a lie, they'll impeach her in it on cross-examination and it will come out on cross? And it'll be interesting because I don't think we saw anything where we looked at Johnny Depp's testimony and cross-examination and went, oh, that's not consistent. There was nothing in his testimony where you went, oh, that doesn't fit. I mean, even with this last witness, it's like, oh, I can see why you picked 2017, but the jury might be like, yeah, but should it have maybe been the last 3 years combined? Or is that a really fair assessment? Is that really how much he lost? There might be some questions there, but you didn't really get caught out in anything. If we see Amber Heard get caught out in something, it's very easy for Depp's team to then say in closing, she lied about this, she lied about that, she's lying about all of it. And once the jury's determined someone's a liar, everything else might go out the window. Was yesterday's last expert witness very damaging to Johnny Depp? I don't think it was particularly damaging. I don't know of how tremendously helpful it will be, but how do you measure reputation? So I don't think it was damaging to Johnny Depp at all. I think if anything, it was, if the jury found that, we don't understand any of this, they'll just ignore it, which again, I don't think is damaging. Is there any question based on what you've seen in all of the testimony that Johnny Depp's reputation was damaged in some way because of this op-ed? I think so. But the jury might say, no, it was damaged in 2016. The op-ed didn't do it. He was already wrecked. And that's what Amber Heard's team's going to go for. His reputation was already kind of trashed. The op-ed wasn't what did it. Question, if a motion to dismiss is typically denied, what's the purpose of attempting it? I would think it would almost be malpractice not to. You have to preserve it for appeal, and you never know what the judge is going to do. It's why you show up and play the game. You got to get on the field. Might be a dumb question, but what is compound? GK, not a dumb question. A compound question in a court of law, though occasionally I say this to my kids, is when you have multiple questions that all need an answer. Like each piece needs an answer. I think the example I gave yesterday would be a question like, is it true that you got into your car, left your house, drove to Starbucks at 8:15 in the morning, got a muffin and a mega pint of coffee, drove home and hit a deer? You're asking me to say yes to a lot of things. But what if it wasn't my car, it was my husband's? What if I didn't get a muffin at Starbucks? What if it wasn't 8:15 in the morning? I can't just say yes or no to that. It's too many parts. It's a multiple questions that are all very compound. So, let's see. Is a mandated reporter always required to report for adults? It depends on the state, and we haven't had any evidence about what's required in California. And they moved on from that very fast. It was almost a blip of, aren't you a mandated reporter of domestic violence? And then it just moved right on. For some reason, I thought it was just children. Thank you so much for explaining all this. I would need to look at the rules in California. I haven't looked at them in quite a while because whenever I dealt with it, I dealt with kids. But with adults, sometimes it's if the harm is reported to them. Because again, adults can get hurt in other ways. I mean, so can kids. But the suspicion with kids is different because it's their caretaker. But they asked her, are you a mandated reporter? And she said yes. And then they dropped it and didn't go any further. So that's all the jury's left with. They don't have any further information. When the prosecution or defense are compelling witnesses and performing the deposition, it would be the plaintiff. Depositions generally aren't used in criminal cases. Even if you do use video testimony, it's not a deposition. It's different. Can they choose not to have someone testify if they don't like what they're going to say? Sorry, I know nothing. It's not that you don't know anything, Emily. It's okay to be a legal muggle. When the plaintiff or the defense does a deposition, they cannot call the person. The other side still has the opportunity to use that deposition or call that witness, but they can choose not to use it. Some depositions just aren't helpful and don't give any information. Question: what does rest mean in this context? It means they are done with their witnesses. We out. We out. We out. We out. If Amber Heard wasn't countersuing, would the trial basically be over once Johnny Depp's team rests? No, Jen. She still is able to put on a defense to show Johnny Depp's not defamable because his reputation is already wrecked, or there were no actual damages, or the op-ed wasn't about him, or. She still gets to defend herself. Is Amber case going to take 4 weeks too? It should only be about 3, but we'll see. What happens if the court reporter misses something? Generally, court reporters have audio recording that records for a certain period of time on their stenograph machines, so they could go back and listen to the audio. I've not seen it really be an issue. I've seen the audio from the court reporter machine become almost evidence in a case when shit's popped off in court, though. That's very interesting. It's like, well, there's a recording because the court reporter was recording. If Dr. Curry is allowed to watch the trial, can she reference Amber's outfit mirroring in rebuttal? If she's called as a rebuttal witness and it's something she feels she has a basis for, maybe. Thank you for the super sticker. Hair is giving Hunger Games vibes. I mean, kind of with the braids, kind of. If you have a mental disability, illness, anxiety, etc., and have to testify, will the court help with that? No. Example, slowing down questioning, letting the person have notes, not have to testify, etc. No, they won't. That will come up. It can come up when the attorneys question, like, is there anything that's making it hard for you to testify? You can have notes to refresh your recollection, but that has to be the foundation has to be properly laid for that. But no, the court doesn't do anything with that. In criminal cases, especially when you have victims of crime or young victims of crime, the prosecution will remind the court generally, and the judge can, remind the defense attorney. But if the defense attorney is going to, really lean hard on a victim, it can play badly to the jury as well. But the court generally won't step in unless it's harassing a witness. Is the motion to dismiss just one more way to run up legal bills? No, that's another 200 added on. A normal person struggles to pay attorney's fees. It's not. It is a proper motion that is made in every case. Love Amber Heard's hair during this trial. Need her stylist. I mean, the hair has not been bad, Miss Opinionated. I agree. Good day from a fellow folk with ADHD trying to get a PhD with a toddler on my knee. Thank you. As always, Elizabeth, that is a lot. I don't know how I would have gone through law school or advanced education with kiddos. Working was hard enough. Could you ever be a juror? I could be. I have not been. I've been on jury duty, but generally when they find out I was a lawyer and a district attorney, I am dismissed. But I have not, I have moved now, so I haven't prosecuted cases in Tennessee. I don't know many lawyers here, so, I mean, could happen. I could sit on a civil case. I mean, I could sit on a criminal case. I don't know if people would want me. I'm home from work with a migraine. Finally got to catch your live. We'll take care of that migraine. I think the reason people wouldn't want me as a juror is because I'd want to run commentary. It would be very uncomfortable for me to sit there silently for weeks and weeks and weeks and not go, oh my God, did you see that? Oh my God, this questioning. Oh my God, what about that? It would be internally painful to have to sit silently for weeks and weeks and weeks and just watch. Good morning from New Hampshire. Will they rule on Johnny's case first, or do they roll right into Amber's and then decide both? They decide both at the end, after closing arguments and after jury instructions. First time in the live chat. Welcome. Sitting here with a giant Costco lemon poppy seed muffin today. I need one so bad. I need to send Dr. B to Costco. And loving your commentary, forever grateful for your insight. My only fear with lemon poppy seed and live streaming is I'll end up with poppy seeds in my teeth. Like literally my biggest fear. There are 25,000 of you live. I would be embarrassed. Can Amber get in trouble if she lies during her testimony? We'll see. Perjury is so rarely prosecuted. I have prosecuted criminal perjury from a civil case, but it is rare. It is rare. And it can't be it has to be a dead on, very clear, not half truth, not mistruth lie. And we will, if that comes up, it's very hard to speculate on. If that comes up, we will talk about it. If something comes up that is very clearly pointed out later, we will talk about the exact thing because you kind of need the exact thing. If a motion for dismiss is not requested, is that grounds for appeal by Amber Heard? It's not preserved for appeal. It might be grounds for malpractice against her attorneys, though. So it will be requested. The judge knows it's going to be requested. They're already getting ready for it. They've been so strong with witnesses. Why would they end with something so dull? Should have stopped with the pros connecting the loss of work. Well, they did that today. They were probably dealing with scheduling and time between the live witnesses. Are most judges this friendly? Some are, some aren't. I can't say most because some are and some aren't. Yeah, some are very, very nice to work with and you genuinely enjoy seeing in the morning. New channel supporter, going morning from NE Florida Beaches. Thank you. Thoughts on Amber firing her PR team? The PR team's not the problem. The PR team's not the problem. Her case goes second. Johnny Depp's case goes first. All of the evidence most favorable to him is in. The evidence most favorable to her hasn't even started yet. It's not her PR team's fault. The nurse looks like Lisa Barlow from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I think a little bit too. I'm an RN. I would not be able to remember much about a patient I had 8 years ago. We always refer to our nursing notes. Those are gospel. They are. And, we talk about it in the DA's office and in legal practice too. When you have an email or a communication, you have to assume it's going to at some point be public if there's a trial, if it needs to be filed in motions. And you need to keep that in mind when you are doing your work, that all of this could end up in court. And it's the same for nurses and healthcare professionals. All of this can one day end up in court. Documentation for healthcare professionals is so important. This trial has brought that home for me as an OT. By the way, Emily, you're awesome. Well, thank you. I think this is a great example for nursing students to point to this trial and be like, look, this is why. Notes, 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 notes. Because it's, I don't recall, this is in my notes. I don't recall, this is in my notes. This is what I note, this is what I don't note. Johnny supporters in Australia, I have seen that there are lots of them. Why does the other side file to dismiss? Because it's not their case. So they, at the end of I think I explained it, but at the end of the case, they have to ask to dismiss. The side that brought the case, if they motion to dismiss it, like if Depp's side made a motion to dismiss their own case, the judge could grant it and then it would be over. So they wouldn't do that. It's the other side saying they didn't do enough. Just love your insight. Well, thank you so much. This is my first ever chatting in a live and doing a super chat. Love this channel so much. Thank you. I do this amazing job with the moderators and everyone else on this channel. The law nerds help keep it tight in the chat so that we can have conversations. New subscriber, checked out a few other law channels. So happy to find a solo commentary with an experienced trial attorney. Love your content. You're welcome. I enjoy a lot of LawTube panels. Are hard for me in stuff like this because I want to hear what I want to hear. I want to say what I want to say. But also I did quite a lot of trial work in 10 years as a trial attorney. Is it me or are these two on an enormous amount of meds? How could anyone function that medicated on a daily basis? No wonder there were problems. I'm not going to judge anyone for the meds prescribed by their doctor. I think that the two of them were in a very unhealthy relationship together. And we've not heard about kind of their daily regimes. We've just seen everything that's prescribed. I don't know. Amber Heard saying she donated $7 million to Johnny Depp. Use that. Yeah, that will come up in her cross-examination. Her attorneys should get out ahead of it if they're smart. They should let her tell her side of the story. Why did you say this? Why did you say that first? If it's not in the notes, it didn't happen. Every nursing instructor ever. Yes. And hopefully this will be used as demonstratives for nursing students for sure. I still have and use Hotmail. I feel attacked. Well, do you feel attacked by using Hotmail? Because it's Hotmail. Court is back. Hopefully we will hear some audio in a minute.
And in addition, the court may not draw inferences from the evidence that defy logic and common sense.
Motion to
That's
dismiss.
the Austin versus Shoney's case, 254, Virginia 134. So the issue here, Your Honor, is a couple fold, and I'll take the statements. Well, two of them in one category and one of them in the other category. Promptly. But I think we're all clear that the sole issue here is whether Amber Heard can be held liable to Mr. Depp for defamation arising from the 2018 op-ed and the 2018 op-ed alone. And to establish that, Mr. Depp has to prove the following elements. He has to prove that the publication of the op-ed and that it was written by Ms. Heard. He has to prove that the statements in the op-ed were both false and defamatory. So falsity and that they contained a sufficient defamatory sting. And he has to show that the statements were made with the requisite intent. In this case, actual malice on the part of Amber Heard. I'll save that argument till the end, Your Honor, and I'll focus on the first two at this point. And because it seems like plaintiff is proceeding under a theory of defamation by implication, under the Pendleton case,
and per se.
290 Virginia 162, plaintiff bears the burden of proving that the statements at issue were designed and intended by Ms. Heard to imply a defamatory meaning. Designed and intended to imply a defamatory meaning.
testimony.
So, and to satisfy those first two elements, publication and falsity and defamation or defamatory nature of the statements, Mr. Depp bears the burden of proving that by a preponderance of the evidence. And to satisfy the requisite intent and show that Ms. Heard acted with actual malice, he has a heightened standard of proof that he must prove by clear and convincing evidence that Ms. Heard acted with that malice. So just want to talk about the two statements on domestic abuse in the op-ed. And Your Honor's well aware of the ample Virginia case law talking about how you have to view the op-ed as a whole. You have to view words in
Yes.
context.
Yes.
So these are the statements that read, then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. And then the other statement that says, I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. Now, those statements are entirely opinion, except for, according to Mr. Depp, the discussion of domestic abuse. So the statement, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and the statement in the second sentence that Mr. Depp was a man accused of abuse. The rest of those are inactionable opinion statements. Now, the evidence adduced thus far, Your Honor, shows that Mr. Depp can't sustain a claim on these for two reasons. First of all, the statements are true on their face. I don't think that there's any dispute about that, and that's been the subject of some testimony in this
There's
case.
a lot of dispute on that.
2 years before she wrote the op-ed, Ms. Heard did, in fact, become a public figure representing domestic abuse when she obtained a domestic violence restraining order against Mr. Depp. And Mr. Depp was indeed accused of abuse. Those are
That's
facts
the argument
that
I
are true.
thought they were going with.
Now, to the extent
good
that
argument.
Mr. Depp will argue that he's proceeding on a defamation by implication claim, again, the court should grant the motion to strike because the undisputed evidence is that he
Motion
did,
dismissed, motion to
in
strike,
fact,
same.
abuse Amber. Now, there's a dispute in this case. There's ample evidence that he physically abused Amber, but we acknowledge that there's a dispute in this case on that. But
Yep.
what there isn't a dispute in this case is non-physical abuse.
Yep.
Both Mr. Depp and his expert Shannon Curry have testified that abuse may come in many forms.
Fair.
It may be physical, certainly, but it may also be verbal, maybe emotional, maybe psychological. You'll recall Mr. Depp even kind of setting the baseline for what abuse was when he talked about the non-physical abuse that he allegedly suffered at the hands of his mother. He said it was worse than the beatings. And the example he gave was that his mom used to call him One Eye as an example because he had a lazy eye, I guess, as a child. That was something that Mr. Depp himself said was abuse, his mom calling him One Eye. So we setting aside the evidence of physical abuse in this case, which is already overwhelming.
I thought they would argue
Mr.
this.
Depp's claims relating to these two statements should be stricken because of the ample and undisputed evidence in the record of non-physical abuse by Mr. Depp toward Ms. Heard. There's evidence in the record of recordings, messages, including messages written in blood with his finger, blood and paint, vile names,
Were those
shouting,
abusive?
menacing and threatening statements. There's the video, the kitchen video in Sweetser. There's the audio of him calling Ms. Heard, like I say, numerous vile names. There's the audio of him
Did he
asking
forget or did he not want to say it?
her to cut him and whether she wanted to be cut. So there's plenty of evidence out of the words or out of the mouth of the plaintiff in this case that constitutes non-physical abuse of Ms. Heard. Again, under the standards set forth by his expert and the plaintiff himself. Those are far worse than his mother calling him One Eye when he was a child. In addition to that, Your Honor, there's Travis McGivern's testimony from yesterday in which he testified that at a minimum
Gave
on the
as
night
good
of
as he
March
got.
23rd, 2015, both parties were being verbally abusive to each other. Mr. McGivern also testified about Mr. Depp, quote, rearranging her closet,
Bing.
throwing racks of clothing down onto the floor and throwing at least one rack down the stairs. Now, in California, property damage alone can be a basis for getting a temporary restraining order under California law. So further evidence of non-physical abuse or non-physical toward Ms. Heard. You saw the cupboards in the Sweetser kitchen video. And then Dr. Laurel Anderson, Your Honor, testified that she believed that the parties engaged in mutual abuse and that at least some of the time that was initiated by Mr. Depp. This is all evidence. We haven't gotten to put on our case yet. And to the extent that this case
Yes.
proceeds, and that will start now. But this is all evidence that has
That's how
come
that
in
works.
while plaintiff controls the playing field of what evidence has come in, and he can't overcome that. In this case, Your Honor, if Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard physically, verbally, emotionally, or psychologically, even one time,
This is his best
then she
argument
wins
that he's done
on
yet.
those claims. Then she wins. It's that simple. And the
It's for the
evidence is
jury, though.
overwhelming and undisputed in the ways that I've just described that he did. So for that reason, Your Honor, those claims should be stricken. And I'll just cite the Union of Needle Trades versus Jones case. This is 268 Virginia 512 that states, if the plaintiff does not establish the falsity of the statement by a preponderance of the evidence in his case in chief, he has not met his threshold burden, and the trial court should strike the evidence and grant summary judgment to the defendant. That's exactly what should happen here. Now I'll move on to the second issue, which is the headline containing the phrase
There
sexual
we go.
violence.
Into the headline.
That should be stricken for a couple reasons. First, Your Honor, the evidence has established
didn't
that
write
Ms.
it.
Heard didn't write the headline. Mr. Doherty from the ACLU, that's the only evidence that's come in this case thus far. Plaintiffs control the evidence.
Well, I understand, but there's also a stipulation
Ooh.
that Ms. Heard would not be called in the plaintiff's case because they
Yep.
would then use her testimony for part of their case, in your case, right? I'm not.
And that's-
I'm not-
That's correct.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, I agree. And that goes to a different issue that I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing that the court should strike because they haven't put Ms. Heard on to say, to testify about
But
the
they
headline.
couldn't ask her
But
about it.
I assume
Yes,
part
Your
of that
Honor.
would be that they would, that what they, I hope
Yes.
I guess they intend to get from Ms. Heard is that she either wrote it or republished it. I
Yeah,
don't
what
know.
happened the next day?
That's
is Ms.
interesting
Heard
info.
Posted it on her Instagram account and said, look what I published
And they're
yesterday in
suing
the
for that.
Washington Post. So
Get it,
she
Ben Chu.
adopted the title, and her name was on the article which contained the title.
And Mr. Ron Bourne, the only reason I'm sorry to
No, that's
interrupt
fine.
you,
Of
the
course.
only, because I know that was a stipulation, so it's hard
Yes.
for me to say that that's all the evidence for motion to strike if there's a stipulation that they're still going to get more evidence in
Yes.
on that particular issue.
Yes.
I think, and I'm happy to hand the court the transcript of the April 8th hearing, because one of the things
That's
that
very
we're not
interesting.
arguing today is that because they haven't put in evidence of I think it was a tweet, but Mr. Chu says it was Instagram, I don't know, whatever it was, that because there
It
was.
was a tweet adopting the op-ed she published
Okay.
the day before in the Washington Post.
Okay.
All right. So
there was a
what I'm
stipulation,
not
that's
arguing
new
today
info.
is that because they haven't gotten that tweet into evidence or had Ms. Heard say that she tweeted that
Interesting.
we're entitled to summary judgment at this point. I'm not arguing that, but
Yes,
that's
you are.
all that we discussed on April 8th. And I'm happy to hand the transcript up, Your Honor. And
Oh,
we actually
the
never,
court
it wasn't a
remembers.
stipulation. It was simply an agreement that they didn't need to call her
Oof.
in their case in
Right.
chief to make that point.
Oof.
And then Ms. Bredehoff
Oof.
said, we'd have to agree on the language of any stipulation. And they haven't proposed anything to us and haven't gotten back to us. So I think that that's only relevant to, we're not basing our request for motion to strike here on Ms. Heard not having testified to sending that tweet.
But you
you're
are.
saying for the
But
motion
you
to
are.
strike, the only evidence before the court is that
Right.
the Washington Post wrote
Bing,
that
bing, bing,
title.
bing, bing.
Correct. And that's very different
Stop
from
now.
what happened the
Stop now.
next day.
Ding, ding.
There's
Stop now.
The stipulation didn't go toward who wrote the title. That was never part of anything. And it's undisputed, and Ms. Heard will testify. that
They
she
would have
didn't write
called
the title.
her.
Well,
You-
I understand that, but
It's
I think
not a
that is
stipulation, Your Honor. I
disingenuous as
apologize for
fuck.
but I think the issue is that whether it was republication.
Mhm.
Well, and I'll get to that next.
Right, I know, but
it-
see, the problem is, how do I do a motion to strike when that evidence isn't before me yet?
Well, the republication isn't.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the evidence
Yes.
that's before you is that the Washington Post wrote the headline, or that Ms. Heard didn't. And that's the only evidence, and that's
right.
not going to change. The tweet, which was the only subject of the discussion at the pretrial conference, where there was no stipulation, it was just an agreement that we're not going to
No.
face a motion to strike on them not introducing evidence of the tweet.
No.
That was what it was. I'm happy to hand the transcript up
No.
if Your Honor would like to see that.
We don't need the transcript. The judge just said
That
it.
isn't actionable because under the Lakova versus Halper case, 995
She's
F third
being so patient with him.
134, retweeting a link doesn't constitute republication.
You're
Now,
getting
that
a lot
case
of grace
Well,
does
it
here,
not-
does if
bro.
you add something to it, but I just don't know
Yes.
the evidence.
Your Honor, very quickly, it's a judicial admission. They admitted in Ms.
Yes.
Heard's answer, she
Yes.
admitted to the tweet. So that establishes that she adopted the op-ed in its
Boom.
entirety, and it was discussed. We talked about judicial admissions. One was the op-ed itself. The second, and this is reflected in
Your
the
Honor, if I could
transcript.
finish my argument, I mean,
I
Stop
don't
making
appreciate
dumb
it.
arguments.
I can't wait to oppose this.
I
anyway,
don't know,
so.
it's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead,
So,
sir.
and again, we can look at the
You
transcript.
understand my concern.
I do
though.
understand your concern, and I guess
She's right.
what I'm saying is that there's two levels. One is there's no dispute, and there's not going to be a dispute that she did not write the headline. So then you look
False.
at is the tweet actionable? And the argument here is that as a matter of law, retweeting something isn't actionable.
False.
And so
Okay.
as under the Lakova case, 995 F3rd 134, and that case dealt with hyperlinks and how those aren't
Oh, I'm
actionable.
hot.
But to be very clear, nothing that was discussed on April 8th, nothing that was discussed at that pretrial conference was in any way relating to any stipulation about who wrote the headline.
False.
It was simply that they need not call Ms. Heard in their case in chief to get her to say that she sent a certain tweet. And that tweet's not in evidence yet, but I assume that they'll try to put it in evidence at some point. But that's, the
Which
tweet
is-
doesn't need to be in evidence for you to strike this claim.
Yes,
on
it
that
does.
basis.
You were
So,
doing way better 5 minutes ago, bro.
Even assuming that the headline implied certain conduct by Mr. Depp, again, Mr. Depp can't meet his burden of proof on this.
Certain conduct, sexual
Third,
violence,
Your Honor,
certain
he
conduct.
can't prove that Ms. Heard acted with actual malice. Mr. Depp
Stop.
hasn't introduced evidence sufficient to permit him to meet this. Now, again, this is a heightened burden of proof. He has to show actual malice by clear and convincing evidence. And as the Bose Corporation case from the U.S. Supreme Court, it talks about the role of judges as gatekeepers of the Constitution, of the First Amendment, and the role of barring entry of a judgment that's not supported by clear and convincing proof. Now, that case was about appellate review of First Amendment issues, but the same holds true for Your Honor here.
I don't know if
Here,
it's a
he
heightened
hasn't
standard.
introduced, Mr. Depp hasn't introduced any evidence, and there can't be a reasonable inference drawn that would permit a jury to find
ACLU.
that he's proven by clear and convincing evidence that
The
Ms.
ACLU.
Heard wrote the words with actual malice. And again, we go back to the testimony of Mr. Doherty, which was their witness. They put him in. And Mr. Doherty, the only evidence relating to intent or anything relating to this op-ed, which was, again, maybe Mr. Chu will try to say that we stipulated to Ms. Heard's intent on April 8th, which of course we didn't. But the only
Don't get
evidence
fucking sassy.
that has been presented in this case, Your Honor, by Mr. Doherty was that the op-ed wasn't Ms. Heard's idea, that the ACLU asked her to write the op-ed, and indeed that they even wrote the first draft, and then that Ms. Heard vetted the finished article with her lawyers
and put her
and with
name on
lawyers
it.
from the ACLU to make sure that it wasn't problematic. That is the only evidence in the record. And on
Because you
that evidence, there cannot be a conclusion that Ms. Heard acted with the actual malice that's necessary, particularly when you consider the heightened burden of proof. So reviewing the op-ed as a whole, with the court acting in its appropriate function as a gatekeeper of the First Amendment, we ask that the court strike plaintiff's evidence and award summary judgment to Ms. Heard.
Yeah,
either
you can
whole or
ask
in
for it all
part.
you want.
Thank you.
Get it, Ben.
Yes, sir.
I can't wait to oppose this, he said.
Good morning, Your Honor. May it please the court, Ben Chu for plaintiff Johnny Depp. It's just still morning. Your Honor, if I may approach.
There was a stipulation, and that's very interesting to know. So we could have seen them call Amber Heard in the plaintiff's case in chief, and we didn't because the two sides agreed that they wouldn't. So he cannot say you haven't heard
I
evidence
just
when they
handed
agreed.
to Mr. Rottenborn and Your Honor an opposition that we prepared
Oh,
before
they
we
did
had
a
the
written up.
benefit of seeing Ms. Heard's affirmative motion to strike,
Get it,
but I
Ben
think we've
Chu.
anticipated the arguments made, such as they are.
They were an opening.
The court should deny defendant Amber Heard's motion to strike because Mr. Depp has come forward in his case in chief with multiple credible witnesses, documents, and authentic tape recordings of Ms. Heard herself, not only satisfying all of the requisite elements of his claim for defamation, including actual malice, but also going the extra mile of showing that Ms. Heard physically abused him. She's the abuser. in
He's
this
having his
courtroom.
moment.
Your Honor, going back to the standard,
He's been waiting to do that.
as Your Honor is well aware, in considering a motion to strike, the trial court must view the evidence and all reasonable inferences drawn from the evidence in the light most favorable to the plaintiff. Any reasonable doubt as to whether the plaintiff has produced sufficient evidence of the wrong alleged must be resolved in the plaintiff's favor and the motion to strike denied, unquote. And that's the Boeing case I believe Mr. Rottenborn referred to, 243 Virginia 81 at 81, 1992. Quote, the weight and credibility of the testimony of witnesses are solely matters for the jury. The jury may accept that part of the testimony it believes and reject that which it does not. It is also within the exclusive province of the jury to draw any reasonable inferences from the evidence before it.
The jury's the fact
Citing
finder.
Rate versus Minix, 275 Virginia 579 at 585.
There's no jury in the room now. This is just before the judge.
In deference and respect to the court's time, Mr. Depp incorporates by reference the legal analysis set forth in the court's opinion letter dated March 27th, 2020, overruling Ms. Heard's demurrer to the 3 defamatory statements at
It's a weird way
issue.
to say demur.
And that letter opinion is attached as Exhibit 1 to Mr. Depp's
good opinion.
opposition. That's where the court fulfilled its proper gatekeeping role that Mr. Rottenborn referred to. As a threshold matter, the elements of a defamation claim are the following: publication
We know
of
this.
an actionable statement with the requisite intent, citing the
Elements.
Shaker versus Bonfault case, 290 Virginia 81 at 91.
This is what they
As
have
to
prove.
damages, they are presumed here because Ms. Heard's false allegations of domestic
Oh, per
abuse,
se.
sexual assault, and rape constitute defamation per se, citing the Tronfield case, 272 Virginia 709 713, a 2006 case. As the court noted at page 3 of its opinion letter, typically an editorial or op-ed column is ordinarily not actionable because it appears in a place devoted to or in a manner usually thought of as representing personal viewpoints. However, Virginia recognizes that, quote, a defamatory charge may be made by inference, implication, or insinuation,
Defamation by
citing the
implication.
Carwell case. And a statement expressing a defamatory meaning may not be apparent on its face, citing Pendleton, with which the court is quite familiar,
It's the jury's job.
290 Virginia at 172. Accordingly, in order to render words defamatory and actionable, it is not necessary that the defamatory charge be in direct terms, but may be made indirectly, and it matters not how artful or disguised the modes in which the meaning is concealed, if it is in fact defamatory. Carwile 196 Virginia at 7. And based on the authority and reasoning set forth in pages 4 through 8 of the opinion letter, the 3 statements at issue are actionable under a theory of defamation by implication.
Quoting the judge
Mr.
back
Depp
to her.
established in his case in chief
Very smart.
that Ms. Heard, in fact, made all 3 of the defamatory statements at issue. As the court admitted into evidence as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, the op-ed Ms. Heard published in her own name in the Washington Post on December 18th, 2018.
Smart.
And let's take the 3 statements and the proof that has been adduced.
Start.
Statement
Smart.
number 1, Amber Heard, quote, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change. Per page 6 of the opinion letter, the first statement could reasonably
Smart.
convey the
Quoting the judge
alleged
again.
defamatory meaning, i.e. that Mr. Depp abused
Smart,
Ms. Heard
smart, smart.
to its readers without extending the words beyond their ordinary and common acceptation. See Pendleton 290 Virginia at 172, also citing the Carwell case. Resolving every fair inference in Mr. Depp's favor, this statement could reasonably imply that the sexual violence Ms. Heard spoke up against was in fact perpetrated by Mr. Depp. Mr. Depp produced several credible witnesses and documents proving that Ms. Heard was implying that he committed sexual violence against her. Mr. Depp himself testified to that, as did his sister, Christy Dombrowski. Mr. Depp's former agent, Christian Carino, testified that, as did his current agent, Jack Wiggum. But perhaps most convincing of all, and most disgusting of all, was the testimony of the ACLU's Terrence Doherty, a lawyer nonetheless. Mr. Doherty testified, among other things, that when they were pitching the op-ed to the Washington Post,
Wow.
they stated, "Hey, Michael, wondering if we might interest you in a piece
Wow,
by
wow,
Amber
wow.
Heard, who, as you may recall, was beaten up during her brief marriage to
Wow.
Johnny Depp. on what the incoming Congress can do to help protect women in similar situations. Mr. Doherty also testified that everybody understood, as Ms. Hurd and the ACLU clearly intended, that this statement and the other two statements referred directly to Mr. Depp. Quote, "This is an article that was in USA Today and specifically ties Amber's statement in her op-ed piece to Johnny Depp." And when Jessica White, who actually wrote the op-ed that Ms. Hurd later adopted, she says, quote,
That
to
goes to
Mr.
the
Doherty,
malice.
"So much for not mentioning JD."
That goes
when
to
the
malice.
USA Today made clear that they, like everybody else who read the op-ed, understood
Lol.
that as Ms. Hurd clearly intended, it referred to Mr. Depp.
Yep.
Which makes her Instagram post 2 days before the trial began, that she didn't mention Mr. Depp, all the more outrageous. Your Honor, there is Ms. Schulman, also of the ACLU, acknowledged that Ms. Hurd's op-ed referred to Mr. Depp.
Yeah, he's chewing up their
So
arguments.
it's very
bit by
clear
bit at the
that the
moment.
ACLU and Ms. Hurd intended.
He called
that-
the ACLU
That was the whole
disgusting.
purpose of this, so that
Yep.
they could get interest in this and it would coincide with the premiere of Aquaman, because otherwise no one would have been interested in anything written by Ms. Hurd. Mr. Doherty also
And the
testified
shade.
that Ms. Hurd only paid 1.3, actually she didn't even pay all that, out of the
Elon Musk.
$3.5 million that she had pledged to the ACLU. And then they helped her lie about it. And it's one thing, Your Honor, for her to stiff the ACLU, which frankly played a reprehensible role in this case. It's quite another for her to fail to honor her obligation to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles with sick and dying children. And that she failed to do as well. And as Your Honor has mentioned, the fact that she put her name on that article means that she is responsible for all of those statements, which she specifically adopted later. And I'll go through the other two statements quickly, Your Honor.
Well, can we stay on this one for one moment, though?
Yes,
Yes.
Because do
Yes,
you agree
ma'am.
that the only evidence before that we've heard in this trial, as far as the title of the op-ed, is that even Mr. Doherty, I believe, testified to it, that it was something that Washington Post wrote
Well,
for the one
that-
online.
he's not our witness, Your Honor. That's a witness from the ACLU.
Well, I
who's
understand, but it's the
co-
only evidence I have.
I respectfully
Okay.
disagree, Your Honor.
All right.
What the only real evidence Your Honor has is Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, which is Amber Heard putting her name on the entire article, including the title. That is the only evidence before you. The ACLU was a co-conspirator with Ms. Heard, and whether they say, oh, maybe the Washington Post wrote it, that's not the end of the story. All she has done is create an issue of fact as to whether
That goes to
she
the jury.
wrote the title or not.
Right.
So
But-
you're saying just having that exhibit in evidence is enough?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Your Honor. Her name is on the article.
Her name is on the
What-
article.
What does an average reader expect? So that alone is sufficient to beat a motion to strike. If they want to come back later and say, gee, she didn't write the title, as if that were a defense, I hope they make that argument.
As if that were
I
a
hope
defense.
they make that argument.
Begging you.
Because it's about as credible as her argument that, oh, I wasn't referring to Johnny Depp.
Oh,
She didn't
shit.
have to.
Oh, shit.
And the testimony of Terrence Doherty was very
And she was
clear
going
that when
in.
they took out the references to Johnny Depp, no one was interested in this article
Wow.
anymore. So she said, put it back in, make it more spicy so people would read. Otherwise, she couldn't get it in the Washington Post. It
Text
would be
crew.
back in Teenage Vogue.
I
which
just
is
called this
the
spicy.
other publication that was considering publishing it, because no one was
Umbrage.
interested in what she had to say, unless she was defaming Mr. Depp. But
It'd
if
be
I could
back
go to
in
the
Teen
second
Vogue.
statement, I'll try to be quick, Your Honor. 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full
Ben
force
Chu's going
of our
in.
culture's wrath for women who speak out. As for the second statement, defendant called herself a public figure representing domestic abuse, which can be read to imply that she became a representative of domestic abuse because she was abused by Mr. Depp, not just because she spoke out against alleged abuse. This inference can be drawn without extending the language beyond its ordinary common acceptation, citing Carlisle 196, Virginia at 8. Your Honor, quote, to constitute a publication, it is not necessary that the contents of the writing should be made known to the public generally. It is enough, it is said, if they are made known to a single person, unquote, citing Snyder versus Fatherly, 158 Virginia, 335 at 350. Everybody and his grandmother testified that Ms. Heard was referring to her bogus ex parte TRO that she obtained on May 27th, 2016. And it was interesting that Mr. Depp's own lawyer said that she wasn't even provided notice. So Ms. Heard made
We heard
very
that
sure
testimony.
that Mr. Depp wouldn't have notice of the ex parte TRO. And Ms. Heard herself, the evidence shows, knew that Mr. Depp, having just suffered the loss of his mother, was already on the other side of the country, was already in New York at the time of this TRO, and was heading to Europe
I don't know if
for
that
several
goes to the
weeks.
defamation,
So
though.
she knew she didn't need any protection from him. This was just a scam for her to get the $7 million in the divorce settlement that she said she gave to the ACLU. She swore she gave to the ACLU and the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, and she pocketed instead. Mr. Depp, Ms. Dombrowski, Mr. Carino, Mr.
Interesting.
Wiggum, and the
I like this
inimitable
camera
Mr.
angle.
Doherty of the ACLU, which lent its once respected name to Ms. Heard's defamation. So while Ms. Heard may have avoided any direct mention of Mr. Depp's name, there is extensive testimony and evidence in the record showing that the implication of her op-ed could not be more clear, i.e., that Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard during the course of their marriage. Under Virginia law, quote, it is not necessary that the defamatory charge be in direct terms, but it may be made indirectly. And it matters not how artful or disguised the modes in which the meaning is concealed if it is in fact defamatory. Citing Carwile, well, we can argue as to how artful it was, but the implication was very clear, as the court has previously
The implication was
ruled,
clear. I
or
agree.
not law of the case,
Well,
but as the court has persuasively written in its opinion
Previously
letter.
stated in the opinion letter.
Let's move to the falsity of Ms. Heard's ever-evolving and ever-escalating change of
Ooh,
IPV
falsity.
and sexual assault. Mr. Depp's sworn denial is all he needs to survive a motion to strike, but there's a lot more than that, Your Honor, and I'll try to be brief.
Don't
Three
be brief.
police
We're
officers,
living.
actually four, but the three who testified already, Officers Sines, Haddon, and Gatlin, testified unequivocally that Ms. Heard did not have a mark on her on the evening of May 21, 2016. And I could go through, I'll just go through very quickly. Officer Haddon, strike that, Officer Melissa Sines on jury trial day
Withdrawn,
10. Question, did you provide a copy of this pamphlet to Amber Heard? Answer, I did not. I didn't identify her as a victim of domestic abuse. The next day, Officer Melissa Sines. Okay, at this time, did you notice any injuries on Ms. Heard? Officer Sines, I did not. Question, okay, were you looking to see if she had any injuries on her at the time? Officer Sines, yes, I was.
They need to address the
Question,
verbal.
and so you were
Oh.
looking to see if Ms. Heard had any injuries and you determined that she did not. Is that accurate?
They need to
Officer
respect the
Sines,
verbal.
Correct. Question, okay. And was the lighting good enough in the hallway for you to make that determination? Answer, yes, the hallway was well lit. Officer Gatlin's testimony was the same, and he had the body cam. Officer Haddon's testimony was the same. The testimony of nurses Debbie Lloyd and Erin Barem, who, like the police officers, did not work for Mr. Depp.
Absolutely, Lexi.
Depp. In fact, they worked for Dr. Kipper, also belie Ms. Heard's false allegations of abuse. Isaac Baruch and Alejandro Romero both testified that they saw Ms. Heard repeatedly and in the clear light between May 21, 2021, which was the last time
Oh, he keeps looking at her.
Mr. Depp saw her before leaving on the Hollywood Vampires tour.
This
The next
camera angles
time
the T.
he was to see her was when Ms. Heard begged him to come see her in San Francisco, which is hardly the act of a domestic abuse victim.
I don't know if I agree with that.
So
It happens.
we have Isaac Baruch and Mr. Romero saying that they saw Ms. Heard repeatedly in the interval of time between May 21 and May 27th, when she obtained the farce ex parte TRO. and they saw no marks on her face and no swelling. Two
That was
witnesses,
testified to.
Mr. Baruch and Brandon Patterson, saw the video of Ms. Heard and her sister Whitney pantomiming the fake punch after this alleged incident of abuse. Ms. Heard's former personal assistant, Kate James, and several other witnesses, including Dr. David Kipper, saw no violence by Mr. Depp and no injuries to Ms. Heard. Indeed, witness after witness has come forward to testify that Ms. Heard, far from being a domestic figure representing domestic violence, unquote, is in fact a recidivist perpetrator of domestic violence on Mr. Depp and others. We have the testimony, the harrowing testimony of Mr. Depp himself, who described several witnesses. One, as Your Honor will recall, when he was hiding in the bathroom after escaping one of her attacks, and she claims to have hurt her foot kicking the door. Mr. Depp opens the door to see if she's hurt, and then she kicks the door in on him and punches him.
The jury is not here. This is
We
just
have the
before the
incident
judge.
of December 15, 2015, when Ms. Heard threw punches at him wildly at the back and side of his head. Mr. Depp testified that he ducked and covered to protect his face. Eventually, he turned around to grab her and stop her arms from flailing. December 15 in the Bahamas, during an argument, Ms. Heard grabbed a can of mineral spirits and threw it at Mr. Depp's face, striking him in the forehead, bridge, and nose area, and the jury saw a photograph of the bridge on the bruise of his nose. We have testimony from Mr. And by the way, Tara Roberts, who is the manager of the island, confirmed that the incident with the mineral spirits. You have Mr. Depp's testimony of what happened on April 22nd, 2016. And we've heard testimony today from Erin Falati that Mr. Depp was very responsive, was very sociable, was not in any way inebriated that day when Ms. Heard says he was, and she attacked him that night as well. And I'm getting to the end of this, Your Honor.
Mr. Chu is like, we're almost done, I swear. But I'm gonna keep going off.
We have Ms. Heard's own admissions. We have her
The audio
admitting to hitting Mr. Depp, and her only contention was that she wasn't punching him, she was just hitting him. We have testimony from Travis McGivern that on February 23rd, 2015, Ms. Heard threw and hit Mr. Depp with a can of Red Bull and then sucker punched him with a closed fist. Finally, we have the rather stunning testimony of Ben King, quite a credible witness who accompanied Ms. Heard on the flight back from Australia, where Ms. Heard admits to him in a rhetorical question, quote, "Did you ever totally lose it on someone you love?" Which was, we would respectfully submit, an admission of her severing the top or the tip of Mr. Depp's finger. Finally, Your Honor, statement number 3, quote, "I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse." Again, quoting very briefly from page 7 of the court's opinion letter, quote, "Drawing every fair inference in plaintiff's favor, the court can fairly conclude that defendant's statement that she saw how institutions protect men accused of abuse could reasonably convey to its recipients that she saw how Mr. Depp was protected by institutions, that he abused her and spoke up against it." Your Honor, again, we have multiple testimony from multiple people, including Jack Wiggum and all the others mentioned, that this was a reference to that. Your Honor, again, the lies that have already been exposed that Ms. Heard has told about the charitable contributions, the incidents in this case. And again, I'll just cite a couple of more. The testimony of Isaac Baruch, when
We
Mr.
liked Isaac a
Baruch
lot.
saw Ms. Heard on June 3, after she'd gone through with the sham ex parte TRO, and Mr. Baruch was asked, did she say anything in response? And Mr. Baruch testified, yeah. In response to that, she, meaning Ms. Heard,
His was good
looks
testimony.
at me and said, I told Johnny I don't want anything. The lawyers are making me do all of this. And that's what she said. Well, the lawyers are making her do all of that. And apparently she wanted the $7 million for herself. She even lied about the final insult left on the marital bed after her 30th birthday party.
Stop.
And it was quite telling that she admitted to Starling Jenkins, a former United States Marine, that this was a terrible prank gone awry. Well, she lied about that too. In fact, she said
Boom.
Mr. Depp was crazy to even allege that she could have done
blamed the
such a thing. Well,
dogs.
she admitted it to
There it is.
Mr. Jenkins.
I don't know if it's relevant for
Pertronfield,
the court, but there it is. The
as
grumpy.
cited earlier, Mr. Depp
Bingo.
does not have to prove damages because this is defamation per se. In fact, these involve some of the most heinous crimes any man or woman can be accused of.
They showed
However,
it
he
anyway,
has
though.
done so.
He has.
Jack Wiggum tested yesterday that the impact of the op-ed was
final
catastrophic
insult.
on Mr. Depp's personal and professional life. That it was a $22.5 million loss on Pirate 6 and another $20 million on others. We've had the
Getting notes. He's getting notes.
we've had the testimony. So we had Mr. Wiggum testifying as to the 22.5 lost on Pirate 6 and another 20 lost on the other films, the other studio films, the indie films, and the other ways Mr. Depp would have made income. We have Richard Marx's testimony, Douglas Banya's
Richard
testimony,
Marks was great.
and the testimony of Michael Spindler just this morning. Finally, Your Honor, none of Ms. Heard's affirmative defenses, which would include, her trying to create an issue of fact on the title, can support a motion to strike, as to which she bears the burden of proof of her affirmative defenses. Quote, whether the defendants have met their burden cannot be resolved when considering a motion to strike. See 243 Virginia
That's the
at
important
83.
stuff, the legal standard.
And just to respond to Mr. Rottenborn's citation to the Lakova case, which we
Ooh.
hadn't seen until he mentioned it today,
I'm schooling some case
I
law.
would only note, Your Honor, that defendant admits that she tweeted a link to the online version of the op-ed at paragraph 97 of her answer, though again, the admission of Exhibit 1 is more than enough to survive
Motion.
the motion to strike. And the Lakova case at 995 F3rd 134 holds that republishing a hyperlink doesn't necessarily start the statute of limitations, not that a hyperlink
Wait.
cannot be defamatory.
His
So with
team
that,
was
Your Honor,
researching
we
the case.
respectfully request that the court deny
That
the
was the
motion to
note.
strike in full, and let's hear from Ms. Heard.
His team
Thank you,
was researching the
Your
case while
Worship.
he was arguing and passed him a note about what that case was
Thank
about.
you, Your Honor. I
And
can only
now
assume
there's
that
rebuttal
Mr. Chu
from
wrote that
Rottenborn.
speech for an audience outside the court because it didn't really address my arguments. I'm going to focus
We
on
loved it.
what our specific arguments are for the motion to
That might
strike,
be
Your
true,
Honor.
Rottenborn.
Mr. Chu spent almost 30 minutes of the court's time talking about the
talk about
disputed
wasting
evidence
time.
of physical abuse in this case, which Ms. Heard hasn't even put on her case. And
He didn't talk about the
I can tell you she's
emotional
not the abuser.
and
And if
verbal.
the case moves forward, she and her
Which is
witnesses
fair.
will put on even more evidence of the physical abuse she suffered at the hands of Mr. Depp. But that's not the basis for our motion right now, Your Honor. He talks about how Mr. Depp had a sworn denial and that should count. We read his testimony. He claims he didn't strike her. But again, that's not the basis for our motion. The basis for our motion is the clear and undisputed evidence of non-physical abuse by his
The
definition,
jury gets to
by
define
his
that.
standards, by the standards of his expert.
The jury
There
decides
is
that.
no dispute that Mr. Depp abused Amber. And therefore, if he did it even one time, There's no dispute that even under their theory of the case, the implication that they want the jury to draw from the article, which again, I'm not arguing for the purposes of today.
That's for the finder of
because
fact.
under the legal standard, I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to waste the court's time with that. But even under their standard, the undisputed evidence is that Mr. Depp did commit abuse against Ms. Heard, and therefore that those first two statements were false. That's our argument on that. As to the headline, it's funny, Mr. Chu, we played 2 or 3 hours of an ACLU deposition. Now he says, well, that wasn't our witness. It was his witness, Your Honor.
They
He
did
just
call the
spent 10
witness.
minutes talking about what Mr. Doherty said. And Mr. Doherty testified that the Washington Post wrote the headline. That is the only evidence, Your Honor. I understand he says, well, Exhibit 1 has her name on it. Exhibit 1 has her name on it. But the only evidence in this case about who wrote that headline is Mr. Doherty's
very good
testimony.
point.
It is undisputed. They could have put anyone else on. They could have called Ms. Heard for that because that was not part of the stipulation at the pretrial
I don't
conference.
think the judge
It was
agrees.
only the tweet that we talked about, Your Honor, and they chose not to do that. Now, Ms. Heard will testify she didn't write that headline, so it wouldn't have helped them. But they've had 3 weeks to put on their case, Your Honor. They've controlled the playing field of evidence. There is no dispute that Ms. Heard did not write that headline. No dispute. Simply saying, well, her name is attached to it, that can't overcome the testimony of the ACLU. They call them a co-conspirator. Of course, Mr. Depp chose not to sue them.
The
But the
shade.
testimony of
The
Terrence Doherty that
shade.
she didn't write that headline, that takes care of the sexual violence headline, Your Honor. And I'm not going to take up any more of the court's time addressing portions of Mr. Depp or Mr. Chu's argument that don't go to our motion, unless Your Honor has any specific questions. But I
No,
want to
thank
be
you.
respectful.
That's
Thank you.
fair.
Sir. All right. For this motion, I've taken the arguments of counsel, and last night I reviewed all of the evidence that has been submitted in this matter. So as to the second and third alleged defamatory statements, at the motion to strike at this juncture, I view the evidence in the light most favorable to the plaintiff.
What is she
And
going to
reasonable
do?
inferences from the evidence to the plaintiff. And if there is a scintilla of evidence that a reasonable juror could weigh, then the matter survives a motion to strike. In this matter, there is evidence in the case that a jury could weigh that the statements were made by the defendant, that the statements were about
So
the
denied.
plaintiff, that the statement was published,
As to
that
two.
the statement is false, and the defendant made the statement knowing it to be false, or the defendant made it so recklessly as to amount to a willful disregard for the truth.
Enough evidence.
The weight of that evidence is up to the fact finder. So the motion to strike is denied as to statement 2 and 3.
Oh, it's granted
The
as to
motion
count
to
one?
strike as to statement 1, I'm going to take under advisement
Okay.
because if it's not a stipulation, I'm not sure what it is, but there seems to be an agreement that the tweet of Ms. Heard is part of the plaintiff's evidence, which is not in evidence at this point. So I can't rule on that statement, whether or not it is just a tweet or if it's some sort of republication or something. I don't know because I haven't seen it yet.
Fair.
So as to the motion to strike on statement 1, I'm going to take an advisement because ruling on it now, it would be premature. I
Fair.
just don't have that evidence in the case, okay?
Thank you
Fair.
very much, Your Honor.
All right.
That's fair.
Since it's 12:30, we don't, you want to just
Lunch.
take lunch? Go ahead and let the jurors go to
Yeah,
lunch.
you
and
bet
come back at
jury.
1:30?
You bet.
Does that sound okay?
You bet that Johnny Depp is like, thank you, Mr. Chu.
Okay.
Wait, what?
All right. Do you want to do it now? Okay, sure.
Oh, Umbridge, what do you
All
want?
right.
What are we doing? They're approaching. Okay. That was a very fiery motion to dismiss, motion to strike. We're going to talk about everything that happened. There were some fucking bombshell moments in that. And it wasn't just Ben Chu's fiery language. We got a very, very good idea of exactly where Amber Heard's case is going to argue to the jury. And it's kind of the lines that I thought that they were getting to from hearing them argue from them making statements in opening statements. So we have quite a lot to talk about. I just want to make sure that they aren't going to be doing anything else in this chat, but there was a lot of new information that we just saw in that motion to strike. Again, argued outside the presence of the jury, but a preview, I think, of closing statements. This is argued outside the presence of the jury because what the lawyers say is not evidence. It's argument. And the jury is not at a place yet where they can listen to argument. I think that Rottenborn did a good job arguing. He did a good job pointing out to the judge that, hey, Ben Chu is putting on for the international audience streaming it. Well, Ben Chu, we thank you. That was a very fiery and entertaining motion to strike for all of us here to watch. But Rottenborn pointed out some problems that are going to be problems for Depp's team going forward. However, what the judge ultimately ruled is that there is enough evidence that the jury, the finder of fact, has to decide this case. And that's exactly where we are. I want to know, Elaine, what are you doing talking to the judge? You're like, what? What? She's been ready to go that entire motion to dismiss. She's very animated up at the bench right now. And I think this is probably a pleasant conversation. I'm sure they're talking about scheduling, but my, this is something else. So we are going to break that down. I just want to make sure what happens. So what we're going to get to after lunch is the first witness from the defense, and we will be into Amber Heard's case in chief. What
Anything further? 1:30. Okay, court's in recess. 1:30.
court's in recess until 12:30 Central Standard Time, 1:30 Eastern Time, and I will be resuming after lunch. I will have to take a quick break because I am doing an interview for a half an hour, but I will be back for at least a half an hour before that when we get into the beginning of Amber Heard's first witness. Wow, y'all, that was a lot. I am going to give kind of my thoughts on what we learned that's important, like legally significant. And then we are going to get into super chats and questions. So you guys are asking, will Amber be first? I don't think so. I think that they will have their forensic psychologist first. That's what's being reported by Court TV. Court TV has been very good with having sources on the legal teams or close to the legal teams in these cases. And so when they've reported on witness scheduling and ordering, they've been right this entire trial. So I absolutely believe when Court TV says this is what we're getting, that is what we're getting. So the thing that I was hollering about during this, and I've got to back up through my notes because I was like, what is happening? So the thing that I was most excited about was the judge cutting off Rottenborn to talk about a stipulation. I realized that some of that was probably like, you guys, what's happening? And we couldn't describe it as it was going on because it was going on. But that was a stipulation between Heard's team and Depp's team that Heard would not be called during Depp's case in chief. So when it comes to whether she wrote the headline or whether she republished and tweeted out the headline, it couldn't be called yet because the parties agreed that the plaintiff, Depp, would not call Amber Heard during the case in chief. And that's what they were talking about with regard to the stipulation. Good to see you, Rachel Luna. So that's what they were talking about with that stipulation. And the judge is like, yo, you agreed together as lawyers that Amber Heard would not be called during the case in chief. So because Amber Heard would not be called during the plaintiff's case, they can't get into that evidence. That evidence is going to come in once she takes the stand in her own case. And her taking the stand in her own case is different. I completely understand why they stipulated, because they wanted to keep the narrative where the plaintiff controlled the narrative, not where you get or where the defendant controlled the narrative of her own case, not where you get the plaintiff calling her. In the Tasha K. Cardi B lawsuit, the first witness Cardi B called was Tasha K. Didn't you say this? Didn't you say that? Didn't you publish this? Isn't this your YouTube video? That would generally be what would happen from the plaintiff in a defamation case. You call the defendant and you grill them because they're an adverse party, so you get to cross-examine them first. They agreed to allow Amber to control her narrative when she testified for her own team, testified for the defense, and when she got to be direct examined by her team. So she got to get her story in first, the way that Johnny Depp did, and then get cross-examined. So that is a fair thing. But then when they turned around and were trying to argue there's no evidence, the judge is like, no. And that's why the judge took that statement under advisement. Depp's team is suing for 3 different statements, the statements in the article and the retweet of the headline. And because there's not evidence about the retweet, I think the judge did the right thing and said, I'm putting this under advisement. I'll decide after that evidence is in. And I think that was a fair thing to do. The judge reviewed the evidence last night. The judge knew this motion was coming. Everyone knew this motion was coming. They knew they were going to rest today. So they were prepared in advance. But what was fascinating for me is watching, because generally when I did trial work, and this is very common in criminal, especially when you're working for the state level government, that you are by yourself. You don't have anyone doing research. That Depp's team is doing legal research at the table and handing post-it notes to Ben Chew to respond to the case that was cited by Amber Heard's team. Watching the level of lawyering happen in real time was really fantastic and exciting to watch. We definitely saw a much more fiery Ben Chew. And the reason I think that that was so, like I saw it in the chat, everybody's like, fire! Because we've seen Rottenborn scream for 3 weeks on cross-examination. It's not new to us to see Rottenborn get kind of fiery and say things. Ben Chew has been very mild-mannered in everything that he's done. And he comes in here hot going, she's the abuser. And you're like, what is happening, Ben Chew? There we go. There we go. And that is why I've said over and over and over again, when you try to make everything important, nothing is. When you try to make everything dramatic, nothing is. And we will see how that plays out for these 2 teams of lawyers during closing, because the jury's going to do the same thing we all just did. When you see Rottenborn get up and be like this and this and that, you're like, okay. But then when you see Ben Chew get up with like literal fire and brimstone, you're like, oh, well, that's something different. We haven't seen that before. So what happened in this motion to dismiss or motion to strike is that we saw, let me see. We saw Rottenborn arguing that there cannot be statements that are defamatory because they're true. She did speak up against domestic violence and domestic abuse. And this is what I thought they were going to argue. I think this is what they're going to argue in closing as well. She literally made the TRO. And because she literally made the TRO, she spoke up. And that TRO speaking up on domestic abuse is what she was writing about. And so when she was writing about it, it's literally true. I think that's what we're going to see on closing from her team. So what else? They talked about the defamation per se and the judge being a gatekeeper. I saw a lot of comments go flying by in the chat about the judge gatekeeping. Here's what it means. The judge can't let a case that's legally insufficient get to the jury. So it is called the gatekeeping function of the judge. Cases that cannot stand don't go to the jury. The judge in her ruling made it very clear. I saw more than a scintilla of evidence. This goes to the jury. It's not proper for me to lock this up essentially behind a gate. Let's see. They talked about the title of the op-ed. There's going to be argument that Amber didn't write the op-ed. But again, this is defamation by implication. They're implying it's Johnny Depp, and the ACLU testimony, which we heard Ben Chew call the ACLU a co-conspirator, the ACLU testimony went a long way in that to show that they wanted maximum impact. And we saw Ben Chew get the slight in there or the shade in there saying, you know, this would be in the back of Teen Vogue if it hadn't been for the references to Johnny Depp and the timing with how close Aquaman was coming out. Because, I mean, what he essentially said was, nobody gave a shit about Amber Heard except Aquaman was coming out and she referenced Johnny Depp. That was the vibe. That was not the exact language. It would have been inappropriate in court if that were the exact language. Ben Chew called her statements about the divorce a scam to get $7 million, that it was never meant to go to the ATLU. Ben Chew called the ACLU's co-conspiratorial stuff disgusting. And I see you guys asking in the chat, would Depp sue the ACLU? If he was going to do it, he should have done it in this lawsuit. I think it's beyond the scope of the statute of limitations now and that he can't. We also saw that they really hit on what is the definition of abuse. And this is Amber Heard's team's whole argument. Johnny Depp verbally abused her. Johnny Depp in his testimony, and I pointed this out on cross when Johnny Depp said it, Johnny Depp said the emotional and verbal abuse from his mother was worse than the physical abuse because it stuck in his mind. And that's exactly what they're going to argue on closing. Okay, Johnny Depp said he didn't hit her. That's not the only definition of abuse. He verbally abused her. And they're going to say, we heard from Travis McGivern, who said Johnny Depp gave as good as he got, and they were both abusing each other. We're going to hear those things coming up in closing again. Ultimately, the jury will decide what is meant by that article and what is meant by abuse. And Ben Chu is going to argue that's not the implication that this op-ed left. The implication that was left in the op-ed, especially because the headline says sexual violence, is that the context and the coloring of that article is in a violent context because of the headline. And for defamatory statements, especially in defamation by implication, the jury needs to take the article as a whole, not just line by line, even though there are 3 parts. So that's going to be their argument to get into the jury's mind that, look, the sexual violence at the headline of the online article, and they might just let the print article go, like, who cares, being her for the online version and bing her for the retweeting of it, but let the other one go, possibly because the title's different in the print version than the online version. So bing her for this, but not for that, whatever. But once you get that headline talking about sexual violence, it gives context to the rest of the article when she says abuse, because you've already got violence in the headline. So I think that's the direction we're going to see Depp's team go in. She's the abuser. She did the things. She is this and this and this. So that's, I think, a preview of what we're going to get in closing arguments. I imagine these closing arguments are going to be feisty. There will be some objections in them. There's no objections during the argument on the motion because it's in front of the judge. There's nothing to object to. So with that, let's get to some more of your questions. I'm going to see if I missed anything. I will cover this again in a summary because I'm sure there's stuff I'm forgetting. I'm going to want to rewatch that too, because that was absolutely a Live Reacts first look. And I'm going to want to watch their arguments again. Because they did bring up the testimony of Isaac Baruch, where she said, I didn't want anything. The lawyers are doing this. And then he brought up the, what did he call the poop in the bed? The final insult. He brought up that she lied about the final insult. And we're going to see that in closing as well. She lied about this. She lied about that. She lied about this. And therefore, she's a lying liar that lies. And that's where we're going to get to. This is a great question. I'm going to get to some more questions. Who goes first at closing? Depp's team goes first at closing, then Amber Heard's team, then Depp's team gets a rebuttal because they bear the burden of proof. They're the ones who sued. So that's what that is. I'm just asking my mods to remind me what time court said they would be back. I think they said 1:30, right? Because I'm going to have to set up an afternoon stream so we don't end up having the streaming issues we did yesterday. Closing is going to be fire. Closing is going to be very, very, very interesting. So I'm gonna answer questions and set up an afternoon stream. So I think Ben Chu's argument to the judge was good. I think the judge was going to decline it anyway. I think there's enough evidence. So I absolutely think the judge was intending to decline this. So let us get through all of the questions that we can, because there are a bunch of them. I still have Hotmail too. I'm a manager, and when I hire, I usually tell how old they are based on what email they use. I mean, it's fair. I'm sure some people still have AOL. What are each of their net worths? I have no idea. That has not come into evidence yet in this case, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I don't know if it'll come up. They might ask Amber Heard about it. Ricky said, when a witness is subject to recall, when are those witnesses brought back? Can Depp's team call witnesses or only recall them when moving to Amber's case? When witnesses are subject to recall, they can be recalled by the other party if the other party subpoenaed them. But Depp's team will have some time for rebuttal witnesses, and they can be called then. Question, why didn't Amber get in trouble for breaking the NDA? I don't know why they didn't pursue it that way. I think by that point, the shit was out of the horse, and suing publicly was the only way Johnny Depp was going to clear his name. I don't know what the NDA said, and I don't know what the divorce agreement said with the provisions of, normally those provisions have a fee, like a fee or a fine structure for if you break the NDA, it's this much. I don't think he wants money. I really don't think this case is about money. I think he wanted his story to be heard. So once the op-ed came out, it was like, you know what, fuck it, we're done. And I think that's why he sued. If you were on Amber Heard's team, would you put her to testify first or later on the witness list? I would put her up first. I think they have a strategy with putting up someone who can give context to her testimony, but I would put her up first. But it also, she's going to get to talk about that too if she wants to go first or not. I feel like this witness isn't very helpful to either side. Cheyenne, no, I think the nurse witness had to come in because the nurse saw blood on Amber Heard's lip, and that nurse had to come in. If Johnny Depp's side hadn't called that witness, Amber Heard's side would make it look as if they're trying to hide something. See, look, she saw blood on her lip and they're hiding it from you. What else are they hiding? I think they had to bring it in. I don't think it was tremendously damaging. I don't think it was tremendously helpful. But I think the argument there is, well, if you saw more, wouldn't you have noted it? And the argument there from Amber Heard's team is right, but there was blood on her lip. I kind of understand why they deposed her, but unless there's a bombshell in her nose, they should have put the nurse witness earlier in the witness list. I agree with that. They should have played her when they played the other doctor and nurses. But maybe they wanted to get in the psychological testimony first before they got to this nurse and kind of bury her between experts. Even though this is a civil case, can Amber Heard get in trouble for lying if she testifies? If so, there are criminal and civil penalties for perjury. But until we see something like that, it's really hard to what if and hypotheticalize. That's not even a word, but hypothetical that situation. 2014 seems Amber Heard getting light therapy, but she's a homegrown Texas mean girl. She lies to everyone about everything. Flowchart, Amber Heard lies, her case implodes. We'll see. We'll see. So thank you for thoughts and opinions. Depp didn't admit Amber cut his finger off. Remember, he didn't want it on record. I mean, when he testified, he did, but earlier he didn't. That's fair. I'm so confused as to why Depp's team would follow up yesterday's testimony with a video deposition. Seems like a downgrade. I mean, I just talked about it. I think they might be burying it. If an exhibit is submitted but not brought up by either legal team, does the jury still get it? No. It has to be admitted into evidence. So it can't be admitted into evidence without being brought up. A foundation has to be laid, it has to be admitted. So if they have it on their evidence or witness list and they don't bring it in, the jury doesn't get it. Thank you guys for the super stickers. I'm also going to remind you to go ahead and do the likey, subscribey things because, you know, where are we on the channel? We're at like 246 or something, which is crazy. Why hasn't Depp's male lawyer gone up to represent him? I think we might have been talking about Ben Chu. We saw him in motion work and we saw him earlier and we just saw him now. So he might not be covering witness work. He might only be covering argument. And we just saw why. Been loving the coverage. Glad Philly D called you out. Me too. He's been a great supporter of the channel. When Emily's gone for the weekend, you watch other legal commentators' brain. You told me thousands of times that you were just filling space until Emily comes back. Missed you. Oh my God, that's so kind. Thank you so much. I like using the testimony against the testimony in that comment. The one thing that Ben Chu did very effectively was use the judge's own previous ruling to bolster his argument. Your Honor ruled that this, Your Honor said this about this case. Using someone's words either to bolster and benefit you or against them is tremendously powerful in court. And we're going to see a lot of that in closing. We're going to see Johnny Depp's words used against him, and we'll see Amber Heard's words used against her. Getting ready to see your guy Garland to get my hair inspired to and my Emily inspired hair done while listening to the live. Well, tell Garland that I said hello. He's fantastic, Nikki. I'm so glad that you found him. You were sorely missed last week. Glad to have you back. Glad to be back. My dogs and I are watching. Hello, Ponards. While I'm watching, we love you. Can you say hi to Ziggy? Hi, Ziggy. They must be playing this depo now to set up testimony of Amber Heard to follow, possibly. Love your legal commentary. Thank you. Whose side is this witness on? Nobody's side, I don't think. She was the nurse that saw what she saw and testified to what she testified to. I don't think she was like really pro one side or pro the other side. I think she was just a neutral. I really do see that nurse as a neutral witness. Sorry, we're throat spraying because it is getting tired. Yep. Sorry, y'all. Things we have to do on live. I would never be able to make it as a singer. I don't know how they do it. Oh, that feels so much better. There was one super chat I think I accidentally clicked off of. I am very sorry if it was yours. I apologize. I try to get to them all. Sometimes user error. With the substance abuse notes yesterday, she was using a specific assessment that spits out a narrative that you can add to. They have it all for accreditation. I recognize the language. I mean, she might have been using a template for her notes that didn't come up. How likely is Amber going to take the stand before the end of the day today? I think it's likely. Do you think they'll call Depp's team as a... Do you think we'll call her Depp's team as a hostile witness or by her defense? Oh, well, we addressed that already now that we've seen that there's a stipulation. Her team's going to call her. Thank you so much for reminding everyone. So wish you could have been my divorce attorney. I definitely didn't do divorce work. Um, the blood should have scabbed if it hadn't just happened. Also, scalp injury would have left a goose egg, not just a bruise. And this nurse clearly said I don't do that. I think the doctor testimony earlier in the case was more powerful. So we'll see. Question: why does it seem that Johnny Depp's team started strong and got stronger only to end on the drowning that seems to help Amber Heard a bit and makes you forget all the good bombshells earlier? It's their job to tie that all up in closing. And I think it's because they had to address this witness because it seems like a much bigger deal if Amber Heard addresses it first. Question from yesterday: why did Amber Heard have a private nurse back in 2014? I never understood that listening to the RN deposition. Um, I don't know either. They never really addressed it. It seems that this was part of their doctor nurse group that worked with Johnny Depp and Amber, but I don't know. Love Leonard's watching with my pets, watching with my snake. Very nice. It's snake season. In any substance abuse by HC prof equals duty to report. Any suspected abuse, duty to report. And they didn't tie back around to it, which was surprising to me. Very surprising to me. So after they rest and Amber Heard's team puts forward a motion to dismiss the case. Yep, we just saw that. Feisty. Do you think we'll see Amber testify today? I do. I think it'll be this afternoon. I think she's dressed as if she knows she's going to be testifying. They'll know how much time's left in court and how much time is in that video deposition they're going to show. RNs don't want to be in the courtroom. Never. Someone said the laughing, smiling threw them off. I couldn't agree more. And that's the hard thing with an edited deposition is that there might have been things the lawyer said that were a light moment, but if those get edited out, it's really hard to know what that behavior's tied to. Great job. Love your channel. Just joined. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. So many redactions. Isn't it all relevant? The teams would have agreed to what's private. And so Elon was wearing a tuxedo last night. I love that he took his mom to the Met Gala. His mom is a gorgeous woman. Hence why Amber decided to wear one today. Maybe probably an SOS call to him. I don't know about that. Franco is budget movie quality. Well, it wouldn't surprise me if Franco was the one that she was talking about doing drugs with in the nurse's notes. She didn't say, it could have been anyone, but it wouldn't surprise me that her perception of him would be a high profile individual. Question, Emily, with video testimonies, is it possible for lawyers to object? Yes, and they object during the deposition. Those objections are decided and ruled on before the deposition is edited and played in court. So they can't object contemporaneously. They objected at the time that it was done. Amica 2 Electric Blue. I mean, at least it wasn't Amica 2 Disco Bloodbath, which was also something that came up in testimony earlier. Crystal said, do you think it's smart for his team to be using this deposition right now? I think the timing wasn't great. The last two before her were such strong testimonies. I mean, I don't know if the jury's getting the point. The jury might just be bored, which also might be the point. Why did Johnny not call an expert to refute Amber's photo? Steve, I think they might be saving that for rebuttal. They want to let Amber put all that evidence in and proffer it as real and make her look like a liar. That would be my guess. You can see the cyst in the picture. I thought it was a zit. I mean, that evidence or that testimony, I think, went too fast, but I think they'll bring it back around when Amber testifies. Mr. Bigglesworth. Thank you guys. I'm going to try to get through as many of these as I can. Happy early birthday. You're welcome. It is not my birthday today. It's my birthday this week. 160,000 was what was left to pay after the divorce. I'm sure it wasn't double that after being married for 15 months. He has her tattoo. Wino forever. I am not sure what that's related to, but thank you. Glad I checked it out. Great coverage. Thank you. Is there any legal option that would allow for Ms. Heard to avoid testimony? No. Your channel is great. Thank you. No. She has to prove her case. She has to testify, and she wants, I think, her story told too. If you download Volume Master, I will take a look. It's really hard because I do have a sound mixer, but it is really hard with those video depots. So I will take a look. I'm timid to mess with the technology. The math was definitely mathing. Sister Babylon. Question, could his agents also sue for damages? No, I don't think his agents could sue for damages on the loss of the agency fees that they would have gotten if he had signed those deals, because those aren't guaranteed until the deals are signed. So whatever interceded with the deal, anything could intercede with the deal. I don't think it was directed at them. The defamation wasn't directed at them, so no. I'm religiously waking up and starting work at least 2 to 3 hours early so I can reserve the afternoon to turn on your stream. Well, thank you. Much love and appreciation from NL, impatiently waiting for Amber Heard to take the stand. Aren't we all? Aren't we all waiting for Amber Heard's testimony at this point? It's not surprising that JD worked with him before. He seems very loyal to people he likes. JD does seem loyal to people he likes, and he did have issues with a business manager taking him for a bit of a ride. When are we moving to Amber's case? Right now. Fairfax, Virginia. Should I drive past the courthouse on my lunch break? I'm sure it's a scene. I got a message from somebody who's in the overflow room today who said that they were there at like 5:30 this morning to line up and still ended in the overflow room. I imagine it will be even busier tomorrow. I want Bob Iger to randomly show up. I don't think Disney's going to show up at all. What's the value of 1 million alpacas? I think that's the court of public opinion for next week. How do you value 1 million alpacas? It's hyperbole. And I think he accurately said that was hyperbole. But they're going to keep saying Johnny was already unhappy with Pirates. Pirates was already unhappy with him. He didn't lose Pirates because of Amber Heard. He lost Pirates because of him. That's their argument. Is there any likelihood that the legal teams are monitoring yours at all commentary to inform their strategies? I mean, I don't think so, but it's always anything's possible. We're crowdsourcing our commentary, but also they should have a strategy going in and they should fucking stick to it. You open with the close in mind. You look at what you're going to say in closing argument. You look at the elements you need to prove, and you craft your case around that closing argument. It's clear that Ben Chu loves a closing argument. He gave that essentially, or a preview of that in court. Closing is fucking amazing. It is the most fun part of doing trial work, and you build your case for those moments you're going to have in closing. And they've been doing this in practicality for quite a while. They know what the depositions say. They know what the evidence is coming in. There might be a few moments that are unexpected, but generally they know what they're closing with, and you work your entire case around it. Is there a limit on how many expert witnesses each side can have? No. I feel like others could have been experts, probably, but no, there's no limit. It's time. Is there any information I missed that explains why Fantastic Beasts is not mentioned? I believe it's not mentioned because it was lost after, I believe it was formally lost after the ruling in the UK case. So I don't think it's close enough in time to pin to the op-ed. Listening while I work, sending you a nice care package. Oh, Gendroid, thank you. It was so lovely to see you last weekend. Someone who is watching this by only reading subtitles must be super confused. Matt Lewis, probably the subtitles are they're not great. Thought I'd let you know my 80-year-old mom just phoned me. I told her I was watching a trial and she proceeded to tell me about this case. Bless her, by the way, she's Team Depp. Let's talk beauty. Hello to you and to your mother. Dr. B just walked in. What's up, Dr. B? We're live. We're blowing through super chats. Come on in. There's not much I can do right now. Can you text it to me if you don't want to say it online? Okay. Comment, because of area of practice, some lawyers are better at certain things. DAs great at direct, criminal defense attorneys great at cross. IMO, Amber Heard's attorneys are depots and experts and hopefully good at direct. They definitely are not great at doing objections and stuff on their feet. Do you think Amber Heard's team are going to pull it together for a decent case, or should we expect more of the same? I think they'll probably be better on direct than they were on cross. And we've seen Rottenborn. I mean, he argues well. I liked him in opening statement. He was linear and easy to follow. And then he got all yelly and pouty on cross. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? He was like, Your Honor, I hope he'll be better on direct. Question, could an over answer more than a yes or no be a signal to JD's lawyer to ask? No, I mean, it shouldn't be. They should answer the yes or no. That witness has testified enough to know. Question, defamation doesn't have to be perpetual, right? Correct. So if Johnny Depp's rep was damaged enough that earnings dipped from 18 to 20, that's enough. The jury gets to decide what enough is enough, but yes. Oh, good day, my spiffy Lego mumbo jumbo talkie friend. Hello, Matt Pond. Good to see you. Apparently Amber's new PR guy has gotten in trouble 2 times for using his phone in the courtroom. Shouldn't they boot him? Yes. He's not part of the legal team. He shouldn't be on his phone at all. So yes, I'm surprised that they haven't. If they haven't, you're welcome, Andy. Can the defense use up enough time so that the plaintiffs don't have time for rebuttal? No, the time is apportioned per side, so they each are responsible for their own. If they are waiting to focus on the years he only made 20 million, wouldn't losing Pirates' amount of 20 million still be a loss? I think so. And that's, again, the jury's going to have to decide. The large rings do that little damage. I think that's something for arguing on closing, but I don't think Johnny Depp's team really wants to go there. Like, but if he had hit her, it would have been way worse. I don't think they want to make that argument. I think they want to stay away from that argument and leave the implication in the jury's mind, or ask Amber Heard, didn't he always wear these rings? But then you get into like them arguing about how much he wears the rings and stuff like that. Question, are jurors told not to let the lawyers sway their opinions? I can't imagine being on a jury and saying it won't sway me at all. But no, the lawyers are advocates. They're supposed to sway opinion, but what they say is not evidence, and that's going to be critical. Question, do you think the outcome of the case will affect any precedents for public figure defamation? I don't think so. There hasn't been any groundbreaking law stuff here. What there is practical stuff. And so I don't think there's anything that's going to change the law. So that's where I'm at. I'm just going to populate the next stream and try to get through as many of these super chats as I can. And yeah. And I can generally talk and type, but I don't want to mess up the time of the stream. So we will be back at, let's see, 12:30. And then, as I said, I will have to, I'll address it when I start the next stream because I'll have to pop out a little bit. So now we can at least link this stream to that stream. But no, I don't think there's anything groundbreaking case-wise here. There might be in a PR sense, but not like a legal sense. Could Amber's case be dismissed? I mean, we're not even there yet. We haven't seen her case in chief. Anything's possible, but I doubt it. I think the judge is going to stick with a similar ruling. It's 1 a.m. in Australia, but I keep watching. It's fascinating. I can't turn away either. Do you think the bad rulings are giving D's less for appeal? Yes, I do. Kina, I think the broad rulings that are consistent give you a lot less room for appeal on anything. I agree with you. Does JD need to prove Amber Heard's allegations were a hoax to beat her counterclaim? Well, yes and no. I mean, they need to show that she lied, really, because isn't a hoax a lie? So casting doubt on the authenticity, I think, might be enough for the jury, but we'll see. We'll absolutely see what they say. Thank you, Dawn. Husband asked me this and about melted my brain. Can jury find for each case that they defamed each other or didn't, i.e. they both individually lose or win? I can see, and I talked about this in other context and in my podcast, I can see them both losing. I cannot see a way for them to logically both win, because if what she said defamed him, then what he said, if what she said was defamatory to him, then what he said isn't defamatory to her and vice versa. So if he defamed her by saying it's a hoax, then her statement's necessarily true and it's not defamatory to him. But if her statement's defamatory to him, it's a lie, then the hoax statement's not defamatory. So they both could lose. They cannot both win. Why do you think the nurse's depot testimony was placed second to last? Seems strange. It did. It might have been buried, as I said earlier. It might have just been scheduling with other witnesses and just being an unfortunate schedule. I started using compound with my students. Yeah. If you ask me blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, 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 objection, compound, restate, simplify. Did you see Inside the Magic on Popcorn Planet? I did not. Anybody else feel like Amber Heard is doing a heavy blush that kind of appears like she is still bruised? I feel like this is a manipulation tactic to get the jury to feel bad for her, but might be reading into it. Darren, I don't know what it looks like in the courtroom, and I need to look at the photos coming out on the day because it might translate different on video. But if that is the case and the jurors picking up on it, then maybe it seems like, hey, it could be makeup, not makeup covering it up, but makeup creating it. So that's not a good strategy. Can the jury talk of the case between them already? No, they cannot. They can talk about the weather. They can't talk about the case until all of the evidence is in. They can't discuss it at all. The issue of not using someone who's been deposed, does that explain Elon and Franco not testifying? I don't think they've been properly subpoenaed and they've not been deposed. So both of those things play a factor there. Most people will go to law school. More people go to law school if you could be their professor. Career switch. I love doing this. We'll be the internet's law professor. No, we're just going to be the internet's legal analyst because I can't yell the cursey words, I think, in a yeah, I probably could. I would make it work. Awesome info here. Thanks for sharing. You're welcome. How would the jury for this case even be picked? Try picking people not biased or not knowing who Johnny Depp is. They didn't have to not know who he is. They had to not know about this case and say they could be fair and impartial. I think there are plenty of people in the world who just don't care about celebrities. We're not those people here. Like, not us. But I think there's plenty of people in the world who are like, I mean, he's the guy from Pirates, right? Like, I just don't care. And those are the jurors you're looking for. Um, we came to you with our muggle questions. Do the jurors have to someone answering their questions, or are they procedurally in the dark? They're procedurally in the dark. They just have to sit there and watch it happen. If you're at a bad movie and they never tie it up and you're at the end of the movie going, what the fuck just happened? That's on the lawyers. Is it beneficial for the jury to know the definitions of the terms used? No. If they do not know, is the jury allowed to ask questions about it in general? No. Who do they go to ask? They can try to ask the court bailiff or the clerk, and they would generally say you don't get answers to those questions. Are we at lunch? Are you going to split the stream? Yes, I'm going to split the stream. Yes, we're at lunch. I'm trying to jam. Can they award Johnny Depp more than he sued for? It depends on the language in the complaint, and I think that it was broad enough that they could if they wanted to. But I need to look back at it. How do you think Amber Heard will handle cross-examination? It depends who cross-examines her. I think there's room for her to get snippy, but we'll see. Johnny Depp got snippy on his cross-examination. I don't think she won't. She's not going to get laughs from the courtroom, though, and that will be interesting to see the different responses. Can we slow down the comments? Nope, we can't. The slow mode's already on. Could Depp sue Disney for improper termination? If he could have, I'm sure he would have. New here, what's a rebuttal witness? Witnesses that come at the end of both cases. Amber's team has a Disney employee and Johnny's other sister on her witness list. Isn't that a concern since Depp's team doesn't? I mean, we'll see who they call and what they testify to. They knew these witness lists in advance and crafted their cases accordingly. The CPA appreciates that chart. Yep. But now I want to see all the files and calculations. I know you do, Pam. This is what you do. If you're using Google Chrome, you can download volume. Thank you so much. It's hard with the court feeds. Why does Johnny Depp's team why did JD team only have 3 female jurors? Less likely to fall for Amber Heard's lies. Can they call Milani makeup? We'll see what happens on cross. They picked the jurors that they thought were best, and that we'll see. But at the end of the day, only 5 will deliberate, and I don't know which 5 that will be. So 3 out of 5 is a lot. So we'll see. Enjoying your commentary. Thank you. Are they allowed to bring up testimony in the London case, in the US case? Yes, for impeachment purposes, and they have been. Thank you so much. Thank you for the catnip tip. Can JD file a separate lawsuit for actual DV, or is that a bad idea at this point? It's past the statute of limitations. Would be satisfying to see Amber Heard do community service. Nope, not going to happen. Past the statute. Hello from Malaysia. Hello. Not a lawsuit, but I enjoy your commentary and learns lots of stuff. That is the goal, is to help people learn lots of stuff. I can't even focus on what he's saying because I've Pavlov to be instantly annoyed at Rottenborn's voice. And that's a problem for the jury too, that Rottenborn needs to be aware of. Too invested for this case to be dismissed. I think we all are. It wasn't going to be dismissed. If the lawyers changed their behavior, wouldn't it look bad? No, it might just be like, hey, this is our case now. Amber Heard's being kinder to their witnesses. I think it's kind of standard, and you expect the lawyers to be kinder to the witnesses they're calling. I think you just expect it. So we explained the motion to dismiss Allie. We just had to wait until the end, and I explained it a bit at the beginning of the stream as well. Do you think it will be addressed why Amber Heard recorded almost all the fights? They're going to have to ask her about it. I want to hear all about it. Her team should address it on direct. They should let her tell that story on direct examination. Wayne Dennison needs to be there for the rest of it. He's outstanding. I zoned out for a minute and I'm lost. Can you please explain what's happening? I think we got to it during the motion to dismiss. The judge was getting very sassy. He fumbled so hard. There were some fumbles in there. Go Benchu, heck yes. Tell him about that tweet. He definitely told him. Happy 1-year anniversary of it binged. Thank you. Love your, it is. It's today the day we hit 100K a year ago. Maybe. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're at like 246, I think. I work in corporate setting and find myself wanting to call out compound hearsay in meetings. I mean, right? But judge, why can't I just do it as I want? Stomps. Fair. Do they usually fight this hard for a dismissal? Yes, though it's probably a bit exaggerated in the level of theatrical performance due to this streaming of it all. But also, this is what Johnny Depp wants, right? I love that you go, Glenn Coco. I think we're past DEFCON Red, but thank you, Octo. The level of argument, again, they are doing what their clients want. They also know that they're streaming. So when Rottenborn was like, I think Ben wrote that speech for an audience outside this courtroom, he's probably not wrong. I think Ben Chu wrote it for both audiences. And this is also him fighting for his client. And both of these teams are fighting for their clients in their best way. I think Depp's team has been a bit savvier at it for sure, but they also have the advantage of going first. The mods are amazing. Did JD include the Washington Post in this suit? No, they don't. And no, he didn't. And it's going to keep coming up. He didn't sue the ACLU either. And it's going to keep coming up. The court definitely denied the request and we moved on. Thank you for your commentary while in chemo. Be well, Olivia. I find the law so interesting and one day hope to study it. Get it. Yes, they were trying to get it dismissed. It failed. Why is there no jury right now? Linz, it's a great question. The jury cannot be in there while they're doing this type of argument. It's not evidence. The jury will get to hear the closings. No, Amber can't settle at this point. His case is closed. I mean, she could dismiss her own case, but that's not going to happen. Serving a stone cold can of whoop ass. Would you like another helping, Mr. Rottenborn? Mr. Rottenborn knows what he's up against with Mr. Chu. I think the names in this case of the lawyers have been fantastic. We're going to get a lot of chewed him up and spit him out. I can't wait to see the memes of this later. I can't wait to hear Mr. Chu on cross-examination either. Will JD's team be able to bring up the fact Amber Heard was arrested? Yes, it's going to come up. I think she should bring it up in her direct, but it will come up in cross-examination. Yep. Ben Chu is a great lawyer. And so I'm going to just pull up all the Ben Chu fan chats. Quote of the day, what does the average reader expect? He's not wrong. What an average reader looks at is more than the title on most articles. What average reader looks at more than the title. And that's a very fair point. And that's something he will argue to the jury. The headline gave the context for the rest of the article. I don't know. I think having Camille Vasquez do the cross on Amber Heard would be very powerful. He's waited 13 days for this moment. He's waited years for this moment. She's the abuser. He's waited for that. So whoever loses this case, what happens? They lose. That's it. It's to the end. Do you think they'll end up using video of the interview she did where she talks about the $5 million donation and wanted nothing? Likely. Hit that like. Thank you. Did Amber Heard provide the metadata? We're not there yet. And if the jury will hear about it when the court resolves that issue, I wish the jury could watch Ben Chu chew this place up. They'll get to see it in closing. Considering stopping my monthly contributions to the ACLU, very disappointed after testimony from them. Believe in civil liberties, though. I think it's something that is worth asking them directly about. Hey, I donate to you. Why is this? And Ben Chu said it. He said they're once prestigious, I believe is what he said. Once prestigious name. Do you think he will be like this when he cross-examines Amber Heard's witness? I think, or is this special for the motion? I think this is his argument voice. I don't think this is his witness stuff. Can they bring up not providing metadata in rebuttal? They can bring it up on cross as well. How do you think Johnny Depp's counsel will do on cross? We're going to see. Hopefully like they've done in the depositions where they're pretty even keeled. This is getting wild. It was. I will probably do a separate short breaking down just this part later today. This diatribe directly from JD's closing, probably. But some of that'll be in there. I'm terrified of him. Oh, I know. I'll give him a knife. It's a very fair argument that will be made. Amber Heard trying to steer him down. I love it when they switched the camera so that we could see Amber Heard's side. Why doesn't the jury get to hear this? I know I answered that already. Amber Heard's ready to jump. She was definitely feeling it, but it's a very powerful argument. And being in that room, you feel it. We smile on Amber Heard when the poop was mentioned. I didn't see that. I'll go back and watch. Amber Heard's whole team's going to need therapy cats after this. Well, at least some of them have them already. Anything juicy happened today? Yes, and more to come. Did they say in court about the lie Amber Heard's lawyer said that we haven't gotten to the Milani stuff yet. Ben leaned over to Johnny and said, watch this, and killed that rebuttal. I mean, he did a great job in his argument. That was the motion to dismiss. Rottenborn missed his calling in politics. He does have a very political type presentation. Amber Heard's lawyers are in survival mode. I think they're trying to say, Your Honor, we're not putting on this Hollywood show for you. I don't know how much that's going to help. The defense is going to make me day drink. Don't do that unless you want to. Even if Amber Heard didn't write the title, most readers would assume she did. And that's what they're going to argue to the jury. The jury gets to decide. Thank you for the happy early birthday wishes. We knew that the judge was going to deny the motion. Assuming Amber Heard, I've got to get going so I can start the next stream. Assuming Amber Heard will not anymore bring up the Milani makeup. how can it be brought to the jury's attention? I will answer this at the end of her case. If it doesn't come up in her direct, it's not going to come up in cross, and they might point it out in closing. She never brought this up again. She told you she was going to, and she didn't, but we'll have to see what happens. Muffin money. Thank you. Definitely need muffins. 32K in chat. Let's get this video to 10K likes. Thank you. Ben Chu's about to name dropping in so many rap songs. I mean, that will be magic. Tag me in them when it happens. I'm sure it will be on TikTok first. Amber Heard's death stare was very interesting. The jury wasn't there to see it though, so she kind of didn't have to control her face. The interwebs gets to see it. Will Depp's team also motion to dismiss when Heard's case rests? Probably. It might not be this fiery though. So Ben was amazing. Can Johnny be called during Amber's case? Unless they've got a stipulation going both ways, he can be, but they might have a stipulation going both ways, and it might be a waste of time at this point. The adrenaline, I mean, for real, that's how lawyers feel when they're in court too. If someone wrote Amber Heard headline, how is that different from Johnny Depp's previous lawyer making a statement on his behalf? They're going to argue that too. They just haven't yet. It's an agent of her, but maybe the Washington Post isn't her agent the way a lawyer is. It's an interesting argument. I talked about this at the top of the show today, Leslie. I haven't read it yet. I haven't read it yet. I'm very, very surprised a draft ruling was leaked. Is tweet through, or is the judge still deciding on it? Judge is still deciding, and the judge won't decide on that till after Amber Heard testifies. When will the subject to recall possibly be recalled in rebuttal or possibly during Amber Heard's case? Do you have a video on Isaac's testimony? I don't. I wasn't streaming his testimony, but I talked about it a little bit in my week 1 roundup on the podcast. So I guess there's a video episode of the podcast. What's the difference between burden of proof and preponderance of evidence? The preponderance is the burden of proof standard. Love your channel. So the burden of proof can be different things. It can be beyond a reasonable doubt. It can be clear and convincing evidence. It can be preponderance. So the burden of proof for parts of this case is preponderance of the evidence, which is like a more likely than not. Do you think Amber Heard's team is worried about her taking the stand? I mean, it's her moment. She better do well. Question, again, I'm not from the USA. Why are so many people cautious of the ACLU? I think this testimony hurt the ACLU's reputation, but I don't really know the general opinion of Americans on the ACLU. Sorry for that. So the motion to dismiss was denied. Yes. It will go to the jury to decide. Yes. Yes, it will. All right. I am going to have to cut the stream. I know I've got a few more left. I'm going to have to come back and get them. Who knows? Maybe the blood on her lip was nail polish. Could be. Thank you. We talked about the Milani makeup. It will come up in cross. Good strategy to have the psychologist first. I think so. And I will try to get to the rest of these super chats in the next stream or in a wrap-up stream because I have to take a pause to switch over streams and be back when court starts up in 10 more minutes. So if I didn't get to them, I am sorry that I did not. We have tried, but we will try to get to these. Let me just screenshot real quick so I can try to get to these as best I can in a later commentary. So I appreciate you guys and appreciate the support. We try to get to them. Today was a fiery morning in court. We're going to link the next stream and pop right on over there. And hopefully it will cut down the buffering issues that we had yesterday. And I appreciate all of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a law nerd. And I will see you guys over on the next stream in just a few minutes. Okay, we've got to go. We've got to go. Bye. Connect with me everywhere. I'm at the Emily D. Baker. If you guys want to join the text, just text Emily.com. If you want to join the channel, lawnerdsunite.com. Happy to have you. Support what we do here on the YouTube.